Sorry, boy, but his captain's got to teach his men what happens to those what crossing.
Captain's got to teach stuff.
Good afternoon from the Batcave. It is Tuesday. It is June 25th, 2024, and I am basically walking you through the remainder of the book of Joshua now. This is going to be, we're going to cover 12 chapters, so this is going to be kind of heavy. But a lot of it is just going to be reading place names. Here's a map of the division of the land afterwards, and really what happens for the remainder of Joshua is just him dividing the land and kind of giving people a recap and some warnings and it's just some details about how they kept the law, and then he dies. So I'm just going to walk you right into the book of Judges. In fact, between the book of Judges and the book of Joshua, it's almost seamless. I'm going to show you some evidence that Joshua was probably getting its final edits in the days of Samuel. And again, you want to remember how the Jews viewed divine inspiration, and you want to remember this in terms of the New Testament too. See, our modern scholars view divine inspiration like automatic writing. Or I shouldn't say our modern scholars. Our modern conservatives do, okay? They look at it as like God grabbed their hand as they wrote the pen and made sure every jot and tittle was perfect, and he controlled what they said. And that's not how they viewed divine inspiration. What they viewed divine inspiration as is a faithful eyewitness testimony from a human perspective of things that were seen and heard by God, okay? And what made it considered to be inspired literature is that the things that happened in it and the things God said and did, and then the things that people did in response were ordained by God, and he moved these things. And that's why you'll see frequent references to people saying, "For this was of the Lord," because they saw God as sovereign over material outcomes, and they saw God obviously as divinely inspiring the dreams and visions and all the appearances and stuff like that of himself. And so they just saw the testimony of these things as a faithful witness to these divine things. And in that overarching way, it's all inspired by God. The apostles saw it the same way. If you read the stuff in the biblical epistles, I mean, when Paul is saying stuff like, "I don't have a word from the Lord here, but here's what I believe, or here's what I think based on someone who's faithful and has the Holy Spirit," he's telling you just that. It doesn't mean what he's telling you is now a law when he's saying, "Here's what I think is, but I don't have a command from the Lord," right? And so you have to take all these things with a grain of salt. You have to also take into account things like some of the records you have in terms of genealogies and things like that. You might have errors in them, because if, for instance, Chronicles is faithfully compiling a record of genealogies, or Luke is, and there's discrepancies in those genealogies, well, the genealogies themselves aren't necessarily divinely inspired. They could be something that just was a family record that was held, or a temple record that was held. And if there's an error in that, and they faithfully put it into their record with the genealogy, then you're going to have that discrepancy in place. Well, we know we have names missing in Matthew. We know for a certainty we have names missing in Matthew. We don't fully understand how the genealogy of Matthew, Luke, and Chronicles lines up. I'm not saying it doesn't line up. We don't have the information to fully understand that. Okay. Likewise, I definitely know I've found things in the book of Chronicles where it's accounting 4 brothers, and the book of Numbers as 4 generations. So that's just one example. And then you're going to have Canaan in the book of Luke. If the Canaan from the book of Jubilees, which is where this seems to have come from, in the book of Luke is accurate, then the genealogical record in terms of the number of years in Genesis is wrong. If that Canaan is in the record, but he's not necessarily the father of Selah and the son of Arphaxad, well, that just means that the genealogical record is an error, and Luke just faithfully transcribed the genealogical record that was available to him, which was probably in the temple records. So it was either in the temple records or in the family household of Mary. Okay, so we don't look at stuff like that and go, this is proof of whether or not God inspired the Bible, because we don't look at the Bible as automatic writing. We look at the Bible as faithfully kept records of things God said and did and the promises that he made and kept, okay? I really don't care what Balaam the son of Beor did. What I care is what God spoke through Balaam the son of Beor. Okay, so if somebody gets some details wrong about what Balaam said or how he thought, or even with Jesus, if you have some discrepancy in what Jesus said, a couple words here, a couple words there, but the general meaning of what Jesus said is still there, it's still divinely inspired because you're getting a faithful account of two people's perspectives on something Jesus said. Okay, and they both have the same essential meaning. Maybe they're not word perfect, but that's how it would be if you got two witnesses on the stand. They're not going to say the same thing verbatim, and if they did, we would know they were coached. So you got to take these things with a grain of salt and use a little bit of common sense in understanding how you view divine inspiration. We view God as having inspired the authors who wrote this stuff, and of course these authors were prophets. Okay, so they're not only prophets, but they're faithful men, and so they're not going to lie. That's how we view the things as ordered up by God, that they kept these records, and so we look at it with that lens, not as a lens of every word was perfect and every detail could never have been altered, because there's certainly many pieces of evidence of things being altered and edited later for clarification, but it's not changing the divine stuff. It's just coordinating details on dates and people and locations and stuff like that and modernizing some things, and that's fine, okay? So we have evidence that Joshua was probably finally edited by Samuel. Remember, we're going to show you in the end how this book was kept with the law, and the law was kept with the tabernacle, and the tabernacle is where it's going to end up where Joshua is going to die. That's where it is. It's in the region of Shechem where Joseph is buried, and Joshua's going to inherit that region, and then it's going to sit there until the days of Samuel, when the ark gets moved to Shiloh, and I think they moved the tabernacle because they took the ark out and they never got it back to its proper place. Okay, so they moved the tabernacle to where the ark was, and then they move it up to Jerusalem in the days of David. So it's in that time where you've got, well, who's hanging out with the ark in the temple and the tabernacle when these priests are dying in the book of Samuel? That's Samuel, okay? And so the priests are going to have transition, but Samuel's the final judge. He's also a prophet. He's also been raised by the priests. He's a very well-connected dude. And then there seems to be a split in the tradition between the priests and the prophets at that time, because the kings come into play, and you have two witnesses of what's going on with the kings and the priests and the prophets, okay? So I'm going to walk you through this as quickly as I can. If there's any details in cities that are going to take place later, I mean, you see all these little notes here. Most of these are past tense, but these cities are going to come into play later. And if you love maps, just get out a map and just start familiarizing yourself. Bible Hub is a great resource for this, but start familiarizing yourself with, what's in Gad, what's in Manasseh, what's in Judah, because these things are going to come into play throughout the book of Judges, throughout the book of Samuel, throughout the books of 1st and 2nd Kings, okay? But this is going to be the initial record of how they distribute the land, okay? And what you're going to find is most of the land is going to be distributed between Judah and the sons of Joseph, which is Ephraim and Manasseh. Gad and Reuben are going to get their land over here, and then the rest of them are going to get theirs divvied up by lot. So it seems like there was always a dominance between Judah and Manasseh. And remember, Joshua and Caleb are actually, or Judah and Ephraim, I'm sorry. Joshua and Caleb are from Judah and Ephraim, okay? And then everybody else seems to get territories like these northern lands, or Dan and Benjamin are actually getting territories that were part of Judah, okay? So let's read through this, okay? So now he says, now there are kings these are the kings of the land which the children of Israel smote and possessed their land on the other side of the Jordan towards the rising of the sun, from the river Arnon unto Mount Hermon, that's right here, and all the plains of the east. Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, who ruled from Aor, upon the bank of the river Arnon, in the middle of the river, and from Gilead, even unto the river Jabbok, which is the border of the children of Ammon. So this would be Jabbok right here. This would be, you see Jabesh Gilead. And the Gileadites would have been right here, but that's essentially the half tribe of Manasseh. And from the plain of the Sea of Chinneroth to the east, to the Sea of the Plain, even to the Salt Sea on the way to Beth Shemoth, and from the south of Adonosh Pisgah. So he's basically saying from the Sea of Galilee to the Dead Sea. Okay? So you see, there it is. And the Og king of the Bashan, who was the remnant of the giants that dwelled in Ashtra at Edrei, there's right up here. This is going to be the Golan Heights region. It's also where Mount Hermon is. He reigned on Mount Hermon and Selka in all of Bashan into the region of the Geshurites and the Maccathites and half Gilead, the border of Sihon and Heshbon. So you're going to hear Machir, Gilead, and the half tribe of Manasseh. They're all essentially the same people. You see Jabesh Gilead here. These people are going to dwell in here. Like I said, they dwell in here during the time that the Israelites are in Egypt, and that's why basically the half of the Manassites kind of come up in here, because the Gileadites had been there the whole time. They probably had been under the dominion of Og. Them did the servant of the Lord and the children of Israel smite, and Moses the servant of the Lord gave it for a possession to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh. And these are the kings of the country which Joshua and the children of Israel smote on Jordan on the west, from Baal-gad in the valley of Lebanon, even to Mount Halak, that goes up to Mount Seir, and gave to the tribes of Israel possessions of their divisions. So they're saying from up here to down here across from Seir. Remember, Seir is going to be just south of the, you see Edom right here, the Sea of Galilee, and this is going to be the region of Seir. In the mountains and the valleys and the plains and the springs and the wilderness and in the south country, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites. Any of the Canaanite tribes that you see in Genesis 10 that you don't see here, you want to look those up and figure out where they went, because they left. Some of the Hittites are going to go up and take over most of Turkey. Some of the Sinites are going to go to China. Other ones are going to go to like India and stuff like that, okay? So it does say that they dispersed abroad afterwards, and then some of the Amorites take over Babylon, and they form the Mitanni kingdom, which is a mixture of Arameans and Amorites, and I mean they're called the Hurrians, but it's Arameans, Amorites, and Armenians or Gomerites. So anyways, it says, in the wilderness and the valleys and the plains and the springs of the wilderness, in the south country, the Hivites, the Aborites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites. So these are the kings that they killed. The king of Jericho won, the king of Ai, which is beside Bethel, won, the king of Jerusalem won. Remember, it's not called Jerusalem until the days of David. This is how we know this is getting edited later, okay? It's not called, it was called Salem, then it was called Jebus, then David's going to take it, and it's going to be called Jerusalem. So obviously that's after Samuel's dead. So this is getting edited after Samuel, even probably by other priests or prophets. The king of Hebron won, the king of Jarmuth won, the king of Lachish won, the king of Eglon won, the king of Gezer won, the king of Debir won, the king of Gader won, the king of Hormah won, the king of Arad won, the king of Libnah won, the king of Adullam won, the king of Makkedah won, the king of Bethel won. So those are mostly here when they were taking the highlands. The king of Tappuah, the king of Hefer won, the king of Aphek won, the king of Lasharon won, the king of Madon won, the king of Hazor won. That's, remember, their northern campaign. They're kind of like, this is Jesus' conquest of Jerusalem. This is Jesus' conquest of Armageddon, kind of typified. The king of Tanakh won, the king of Megiddo won. See, that's the valley of Armageddon. This is where they're fighting all these kings, okay? The king of Kadesh won, the king of Jokneam of Carmel won, the king of Dor won, Dor in the coast of Dor won. So this is Dor right here. You see Megiddo right here, Hazor right here. So this is probably where these armies all gathered. They met right here. They lost right here. The king of the nations of Gilgal won. The king of Tisra won. All the kings, 31. So they killed 31 kings in Joshua's campaign. And it looks like Joshua's campaign was about 5 years total. I thought it all took place in about a year. It actually says right here it's about 5 years. And then he lives a total of, I believe, 20 years from the time they come into the land, and then he dies, okay? Now Joshua was old and stricken in years, and the Lord said to him, Thou art old and stricken in years, and there remains yet very much land to be possessed. This is the land that yet remaineth, all the borders of the Philistines, all the Geshuri. So remember, the Lord is telling them, all the land of the Philistines is theirs. The Geshur is actually where, remember, Absalom is going to be, I believe, related to the Geshurites. So those are Gentiles that are still there. And the Lord's telling them, take them all. Take all the land. All the land that you see here, which was Philistine land, which is now the Gaza Strip, they were supposed to take it. So they were supposed to push the Philistines out. Now, the Philistines did have a covenant with Abraham and Isaac back in the day, but I think because the Philistines started attacking them, that covenant is moot. So, because the covenant was you treat us good and we'll treat you good, essentially. So when the Philistines are breaking their covenant, then they're out. Okay. From Sihor, which is before Egypt, even to the borders of Ekron northward, and is counted to the Canaanite, the 5 lords of the Philistines, the Gazathites, the Ashdodites, the Ashkelonites, the Gittites, the Ekronites, the Avites. From the south, all the land of the Canaanites, in Meir, which is besides the Sidonians, and to the borders of the Amorites. To the borders of the Amorites. So, remember that there are other Amorites, okay? So he's telling them to take all this land around Tyre and Sidon. Remember, they're supposed to take all the way up to the Euphrates River. Well, when you get up to the Euphrates River, that's when the other Amorites are. Okay, so if you look at the Mitanni are a mixture of Amorites and Arameans, and this is a kingdom right here. And you see how you have Carchemish up here. This is about to where the Jews were supposed to go north here, right up to the river Euphrates. That was all the land that was supposed to be theirs. And then you get into Amorite territory, okay? And the Amorites at that time are going to rule all the way down. They're different kingdoms, but they're all Amorites. Okay, they're going to rule all the way down to Babylon, okay? You're still going to have the Chaldeans and the Akkadians and stuff like that there, but the dominion goes to the Amorites because they basically progressively took over after Nimrod's kingdom fell apart. So he's basically telling him, take all the way up, because the Hittites are up here, and the Hittites and the Amorites, I think they're kind of starting to fight, because they're the two big kingdoms that came out of the Canaanites, and basically, he's basically saying, take all the way up here to the border of them, okay? Remember, they just beat huge armies of Hittites when they fought in the north, and yes, there were Hittites in the land, but expect that those Hittites were probably backed up by Hittites up here. And then those Hittites their kingdom is going to progressively decrode after that, just like Egypt did. And you're going to have the sea peoples and stuff pillaging it and taking it apart. The Mitanni are going to kind of fade out of existence, and they seem like they're going to eventually be replaced by the Assyrians. And then these Mesopotamians over here in the Book of Judges are going to try to attack the Jews and oppress them, and when the Jews finally defeat them, their kingdom starts to fall apart, and they get replaced by the Middle Babylon, that would be the Middle Babylonian Empire, and they're eventually going to get replaced by the Neo-Babylonian Empire, but they're going to be taken over by the Hittites or by the Assyrians for a while. Okay, so what you're seeing is the downfall of civilizations here, and from the time when you get the Jericho being sacked, people are like, oh, that's the late Bronze Age. Well, why is it the late Bronze Age? And the answer is because the bronze trade is mostly controlled by two crews of people. One is going to be the Philistines controlling the trade that comes from Crete and Cyprus and Britain and Spain. Okay, that's going to be kind of a sea trade network of the ingredients you need to make bronze, and that seems to be going on mostly in Crete. The other one is going to be the Hittites, who control all these mountains of Turkey, and there seems to be the adequate resources to make bronze there. But when the Hittites start to fall apart, and then the Danites basically take over the sea trade, that bronze trade collapses. And so you don't have bronze being spread all over Egypt and Canaan and Mesopotamia, because the main sources of it are all died down in terms of control of a sleek supply chain. And you do have bronze coming back, but you're going to find a lot more of that in Greece. And you're going to find, the Israelites eventually are going to start to pick up some stuff, but then iron's going to come to start into play. And as civilizations get stronger and more dense and able to, create iron weapons and maintain iron weapons, well, iron weapons last a lot longer, and they're just going to shift over to iron as the main resource they're using for tools and weapons. Okay? Now, remember, you always want to remember, when you go all the way back to Genesis 5, how to make these different metals. It's not like they're just figuring this stuff out for the first time, okay? Because you find out that, not Lamech, but his son, in Genesis 4, Tubal-Cain says he's an artificer in brass and iron. Okay, so if you can make brass, you can make bronze. Brass is, I think, just copper and I forget which, copper and aluminum, and the other one, and I think bronze is copper and tin. Okay, so they're saying brass and if he knows how to make stuff in brass and iron, then they know all the smelting and alloy technology and stuff like that that they need to make bronze and steel, basically. Okay. Not that these things don't improve over time, but they know how to make them, okay? So they knew how to make this stuff before the flood. The problem is it just was too inconvenient to make it, especially when you're down to tribal societies. And so these guys are going to go back to making stone and wood tools like Native Americans would. And then they're eventually going to build up robust economies, and the next thing that's going to come in is bronze, because bronze is going to be, at that time, you're going to have access to the different ingredients for it, which is mostly tin and copper, and then from there it's going to get back to iron again. Okay, so it's not that they're discovering this stuff for the first time; it's that it's becoming economically conducive to do it again, because they're having more and more people again. Okay. So, it says to the border of the Amorites, to the land of the Gibeonites, and all Lebanon, towards the sun rising, from Baal-Gad under Mount Hermon to the entering of Hamath. I don't know where Hamath is, but I think Hamath is the furthest north. Yep. So Hamath would be, if you see how far they are, Sidon is up here, and he's saying till the entering of Hamath. So Hamath is going to be, you see where Aleppo is right here? Aleppo's that city was getting bombed to crap during the Syrian war. It's up to this region where they connect over to the Euphrates River. Because remember, they were given the river of Egypt, or the brook of Egypt, to the river Euphrates. And this is meant to be the northern border of their kingdom. So they're meant to control all this Western sea trade, and then what this would become is basically they would be hitting on the border of where the Amorites and the Hittites are contending, and after that it's going to be the Arameans and the dwindling of the Hittite Empire, and then eventually the Hittite Empire is going to be replaced by the Lydian kingdom, and then eventually that's going to be replaced by the Greeks. But the point is they're at this nexus of trade between the big Mesopotamian kingdom, which eventually becomes the Persian, and the Anatolian kingdom, which eventually becomes the Greeks, and then those guys are going to war. And so they're always in this great place to either interject on one side or the other, or to trade with both sides. Okay? And so God is basically giving them this land that is supreme, because on the southern border of them, they have a pretty stable relationship with Egypt, and Egypt pretty much controls the flow of trade to Cush, and Cush pretty much controls the flow of trade to India for about the next 1,000 years almost. Okay, I mean, it's not going to be until the Assyrians sack Egypt and then the Babylonians take over Egypt that gets disrupted, okay? So they have a border with access to a lot of trade that's going very well, and they are the exclusive access to everything that's coming out of the north to that place, and then they're able to, again, interject in wars, and they're able to interject in treaties and stuff like this. And all this boils down to the original design of Noah to have Shem in this region interceding for Japheth and Ham. Okay, Japheth and Ham would have been essentially in Africa and Eurasia, and Shem would have been right in the middle. Okay, that seems to be Noah's original plan, to have him be the high priesthood and them interceding for them, but it doesn't work out in Noah's day because of the Canaanites and because of Nimrod. It ultimately is going to be worked out with Christ in the millennium. It's going to be Noah's ordained plan, where he says that, he prophesies that Japheth will be enlarged. In other words, he gets this larger northern territory. He's going to spread out far and wide. He's going to be the predominant people in the earth in terms of just the geographical dominion. But he's going to dwell in the tents of Shem. Shem is going to be the religious head of Japheth. Okay, so even though he's bigger, Shem is over him in terms of spiritual dominion. Well, it doesn't work out, and so that's ultimately going to be fulfilled in Christ and the church. Okay? And then it says Canaan will be his servant. It doesn't mean that Ham is out. It just means that Japheth is going to get the superior dominion. Ham is obviously has access to be in the tents of Shem just like everyone else, and so do the actual Canaanites, which is why you have Canaanites coming to Christ. Okay? So don't think of all Canaan as cursed, as in God hates you forever. Okay? Noah curses Canaan because Canaan is taking over and occupying Shem's land. And then Canaan just keeps getting more and more and more sinful, and so God destroys them. But just like any other person, whether it's an Edomite, Canaanite, whatever, they can change. They can be born again. They just are not going to have dominion in terms of, political dominion on the earth. God doesn't like this because they're wicked, they're rebellious. They're rebelling against Noah's ordained plan. They're rebelling against God's ordained plan. And because of that, they are under a curse. Now, a curse doesn't mean you're hated by God. A curse means you're under the penalty of what you're doing. Like he says, whoever doesn't keep the law perfectly is under a curse. Okay? You're under the penalty of what you're doing. Okay? You're under the penalty of what God says. If you fulfill the requirement to be cursed, you're cursed. If you stop fulfilling the requirement to be cursed, you're not cursed. So if he curses Edom or he curses Canaan, how do these people get out from under the curse? And the answer is to be born again, to become a new creature. Okay? When they're born again, they become a new creature. Just like everyone's cursed under the law, when you're born again, you could become a new creature. You are not that person who is cursed, if that makes sense. If you understand that framework, then you understand how everything God's doing is racist, and yet it's equal. Okay? So he's ordaining for descendants of certain people who sinned and did certain things wrong to have these penalties because of that. But through faith, they can be born again and changed. Okay? So, it says, all the inhabitants of the hill country of Lebanon to Misrephoth, the name, and the Sidonians, them I will drive out before the children of Israel, only divided by lot to the Israelites for an inheritance, as I have commanded thee. So he's like, Joshua, you're not responsible for this now. You took out the main armies and the main cities. Now divide up the land, and it's up to them to take out the rest. Okay? Now therefore divide the land for an inheritance into the 9 tribes and the half tribe of Manasseh, with whom the Reubenites and the Gadites, or it says, and the half tribe of Manasseh, with whom the Reubenites and the Gadites have received their inheritance, which Moses gave to them beyond the Jordan eastward. Let's go back to our map here. Even as Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them. From Aroer, which is on the bank of the river Arnon, and the city that is in the midst of the river, to the plain of Medeba and Dibon. I don't see that on my map here, but it's up here probably. And all the cities of Sihon and the Amorites, which reigned to Heshbon in the border of the children of Ammon. So there's right here. And Gilead in the border of the Geshurites and the Maccathites, and Hermon and Bashan and Salah. So Geshur is like up in here, I think. They're basically around this side of the Sea of Galilee. You want to make sure you understand there were always Gentiles on this side of the Sea of the Galilee, okay? So when you hear Jesus going back and forth between this side and that side of the Sea of Galilee, on this side is Jews, and on this side there were always Gentiles. The Jews never kicked them out fully, okay? And of course this is going to be, up here is going to be your Golan Heights, up here is going to be your West Bank, and this is all part of Jordan now. The kingdom of Og of Bashan, which reigned from Ashtaroth and Edrei, who remained of the remnant of the giants, for these Moses did smite and cast them out. So it seems like there's basically 2 tribes of giants. One are going to be, again, Ashtaroth is Ishtar. That seems to be the mother of them all. And Og of Bashan seems to be the last remnant of the Rephaim. Okay, so when you see the giants here, let's go to a newer version like the New Revised. Everyone thinks the King James is so much better. Who alone was left in the survivors of the Rephaim, okay? It's not so much better. There's like 3 words in the Old Testament that the King James translates devil, and those are shades, the word for satires, and the word for fawns, okay? There's 3 different kinds of demonic entities, okay? And it just makes them all devils, just like it makes Satan and the individual demons. It just calls them all the devil or devils, okay? They're different beings. They're different creatures with apparently different origins, okay? I'm leaning towards the belief that your demons, the reason Jesus is casting out so many demons around this region is because this is where the Nephilim were. When it seems like that the word for one of the words for demons is shades, and shades is literally the ghost of a departed mortal, basically. Okay, this is not a fallen angel. Okay, it's the ghost of a departed mortal. Well, the ghosts of humans go to Sheol. So what ghosts of departed mortals are hanging around being shades? That seems to be Nephilim, and the Jews definitely believed that the departed spirits of Nephilim were the demons that possessed people. Okay, and all of Jesus casting out demons activity seems to be happening right around here. Okay, all of it. And so it seems like they hang out and they're territorial. Not that they can't go other places, and not that there weren't giants in other places. You seem to have demonic and occult and witchcraft activity associated with giants all over the world. So it's not like this is the only place that happened, but it seems to be the main place that happened in the Middle East. Okay? And then the other group is going to be the Anakims, which the Mesopotamians call Anunnaki, and they seem to live in Hebron, right here, which is where Caleb is going to take over, and David's going to rule from there until he sacks Jerusalem. Okay, so Goliath and his brothers are apparently all from these Anakim, and there's probably some distant relationship between these two groups, or there could be another woman who was sleeping with angels and made more Nephilim. We know these were the OGs. Okay, I mean, this all the historical, whether it's mythological or whatever records. Og seems to be in the Book of the Giants. Og seems to be well known in the Mesopotamian world, and for all we know, he could have lived to be hundreds of years. We don't know how old he was, but Ashtaroth is where Ishtar came from, and Mount Hermon is right there too. Okay. So it seems to be a well-established thing that this is where the giants come from, and seems to be where there's a lot of demons afterwards. And it seems to be the departed spirits of these fallen angel hybrid creatures. Okay? So, anyways, he said, though these Moses defeated and driven out, yet the Israelites did not drive out the Geshurites and the Maccathites, but Geshur and Makath live with Israel to this day. So this day is probably the days of David. Okay? To the tribe of Levi alone, Moses gave no inheritance. The offering by fire to the Lord God of Israel is an inheritance, as he said to them. Moses gave an inheritance to the Reubenites according to their clans. Their territory was from Aror, from the edge of the Wadi Arnon, and the town that was in the middle of the valley, and the tableland by Medeba, with Heshbon and all its towns in the tableland. A tableland is probably like a plateau or something like that. Dibon and Bamoth Baal and Beth Baal Meon and Jahaz and Kedemoth and Mephath and Kiriathim and Sibmah and Zereth Sahar in the valley of the hill of the valley, and Beth Peor and the slopes of Pisgah, and Beth Jeshimoth. That is all the towns that are in the tableland, and the kingdom of Sihon and the Amorites who reigned in Heshbon, whom Moses defeated with the leaders of Midian. Evi and Rechem and Zur and Hur and Reba, the princes of Sihon, who lived in the land. If you remember how the Midianites gathered an army against them, and it seems to be there were Midianite women who were involved in the Moabites cursing them with Baal and stuff like that, and then them getting caught in fornication with some idolatry, and that's how they all die. Those Midianites seem to, they defeat them because they sent their daughters among them. Okay? Along with the rest of those who they put to death, the Israelites also put to the sword Balaam, son of Beor, who practiced divination. So they actually killed Balaam, okay? I think that's also in Numbers or Deuteronomy, it says too. And the borders of the Reubenites was the Jordan and its banks, and this was the inheritance of the Reubenites according to their families and their towns and their villages. Moses gave inheritance also to the tribe of the Gadites according to their family. Their territory was Jazer and the towns of Gilead and half of the land of the Ammonites and Aror, which is east of Rabbah. So Reuben, the oldest, gets the first territory after they kick the crap out of the Midianites, who are apparently here. And then these guys are going to get the lands of Og, king of Bashan, and the other dude they've defeated, Sihon. In Heshbon and Ramath Mizpah and Betuim of Manahaim and the territory of Debir and the valley of Beth Haram and Beth Nimron and Succoth and Zaphon and the kingdom of Sihon of Heshbon and the Jordan and its banks in the lower end of the Sea of Chinnereth. The Sea of Chinnereth is the Sea of Galilee. Eastward beyond the Jordan, this is the inheritance of the Gadites with their clans. So they're going to get Sihon's. These guys are going to get Og's territory, and Reuben's going to get these Midianites' territory, who apparently dwelt there and helped. They were apparently like confederate with Moab. Okay. Their territory extended from Menaheim, which is all Bashan, and the whole kingdom of Og of Bashan. So this is the half tribe of Manassites. There's all the settlement of Jair, which is in Bashan. Okay, these guys are going to come into play in the book of Judges in a big way. Okay, the half tribe, the half of and half of Gilead and Ashtaroth. I think this is meant to say the half Gileadites or whatever, because the Gileadites, remember, they are part Judite, part Aramean, part Manassite. Okay, so they're mixed, so they're half. In Ashtaroth and Edrei, in the towns of the kingdom of Og and Bashan, these were allotted to the people of Machir. Machir is the father of Gilead, the son of Manasseh, according to their clans, the half tribe of Machirites. So notice the Machirites and the Gileadites have kind of the same name. Okay, I think Machir does have other children, so it's probably not exclusively the Gileadites here, but the Gileadites seem to be the dominant ones. Okay. These are the inheritances that Moses distributed to the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan east of Jericho, but the tribe of Levi, Moses gave them no inheritance. The Lord God of Israel is their inheritance, as he said. He's going to say that like 3 or 4 times, okay? They are the inheritance of the Israelites for seed in the land of Canaan, which the priest Eleazar and Joshua son of Nun and the heads of the family and the tribes of the Israelites distributed them. So if you remember, Aaron has 2 sons die, and the other 2 sons remain as priests. Eleazar is one of them, and then Phinehas, who I think is Eleazar's son, might be the other guy's son, stabs those 2 people with a spear, and then he gets prophesied that he's going to inherit an eternal priesthood. He is going to be the predecessor to Zadok, and Zadok is going to have a Zadok II, who enters into the line of Christ, and he ends up part of the Melchizedek priesthood. His descendants do. Okay. So when you see things about the descendants of Zadok later on in the Bible and prophecies, it may be talking about genealogical Zadok, or it may be talking about the church, because Zadok goes into Christ. Okay, we'll see. We'll find out. For Moses had given an inheritance to 2 1/2 tribes beyond the Jordan, and the Levites had no inheritance among them. For the people of Joseph were 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim, and no portion was given to the Levites in the land, but only towns to live in with their pasture lands and their flocks and herds. And when you're reading this, understand this is supposed to be boring, okay? This is not supposed to be an exciting tale of adventure, okay? Because it's literally like, these are like telling you where the state of Michigan and the state of Indiana intersect, and which towns are on the border and which are on their side and their side, so these states don't fight later and say, wait a minute, that's ours. No, 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 no. We'll go back to the records. See, Joshua gave it to us, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but it got conquered by those invaders who blah, 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 and we got it back from them. We appreciate you getting it back for us, but it's ours, and the law says you can't give your inheritance away. So thank you for helping us with that. That was actually your duty as, tribe of Israelites. We'll help you if they ever invade you, okay? Well, they invaded you because you guys were worshiping Baals of Peor, and that was your fault. Yeah, technically. But the Lord did said if we repent and return to him, that he would return to us, and his promises are sure forever. So sorry about your loss, but it's still our land. Okay? This kind of stuff's going to go on. The Israelites did as the Lord commanded Moses, and they allotted the land. Then the people of Judah came to Joshua at Gilgal, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite, and all this is going to be accounted when we get to Chronicles, said to him, that the Lord said to Moses, the man of God at Kadesh Barnea, concerning you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of God, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought him an honest report. But my companions went up with the Lord, made the heart of the people melt, yet I wholeheartedly followed the Lord my God. He's like, remember, me and you, boy, me and you. Everybody else was talking crap, but me and you. And Moses swore on that day, surely the land in which your foot has trodden shall be inheritance for you and your children forever, because you have wholeheartedly followed the Lord your God. So remember, they all spied out different portions of the land. And Moses told Caleb, the land that you spied out is yours and your children's forever. That's going to be Hebron. It's up here. And now, as you see, the Lord has kept me alive, and as he said, these 40 years since the time the Lord spoke this word to Moses while Israel was journeying through the wilderness. And here I am, 85 years old. Joshua's 90. And I am still strong today as I was on the day that Moses sent me. My strength is as the strength was then for war and for coming and going. I'm sorry, Joshua is 95. Okay, they're 80 and 90 when they come in. It's 5 years later, okay? So now, give me this hill country which the Lord spoke for me on that day. For you heard on that day how the Anakim were there with great fortified cities, and it may be that the Lord will be with me, and I will drive them out, as the Lord says. So he knows there's Anakim there, and he's like, and I'm going to go get them because I am Caleb, and I don't play. Joshua blessed him and gave Hebron to Caleb the son of Jephunneh for an inheritance. So Hebron became the inheritance of Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite to this day, because he wholeheartedly followed the Lord God of Israel. And my theory is that Hebron is where Heber settled, and that Shem was in Jebus, or Salem. Okay, because you see how close they are, right? Heber and Shem outlived all the other Shemites by like 100 years, and they died within like 40 years of each other. Okay, so you see how close they are, and it would not shock me at all if Heber and his later children, and then Shem and his later children lived there, and then they were eventually pushed out by the Jebusites and the Anakims, because it just seems like they're really going after Shem's territory. Like, it seems like Nimrod and the Canaanites both have a plan to essentially take that central role. Nimrod seems to going after Japheth's rule of the predominant political rule, and Canaan seems to be going after Shem's predominant spiritual rule. And they bring in Nephilim and all kinds of witchcraft, and the other guys follow what I believe is Zoroastrian astrology to try to make Nimrod to be the next heir of Noah as king of the whole world. So, not going to work out. Now, the name of Hebron formerly was Kiriath Arba. This Arba was the greatest man among the Anakim, and the land had rest from war. So it is possible the Jews just named this Hebron, and it has nothing to do with Heber. And it was Kiriath Arba, or it was Hebron, because it is called Hebron, I believe, in Genesis. Oh, and Sarah died at Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went to... so it could have been edited later that it's called Hebron, or Hebron could have been the original name before it gets named after the city of Arba, because Arba was an Anakim. Because the Anakim don't seem to be there in Abraham's day, okay? We know that there's Anakim up here in Abraham's day, but you'd think it would have been notable that Abraham is burying Sarah right where the Anakim are. And there don't seem to be any Anakim in the area at that time. So my guess is it was called Hebron, then they change it, then they change it back. And Abraham was probably dwelling, honestly, in a land that belonged to Heber and his descendants, because they're Hebrews. The lot for the tribe of the people of Judah, according to their families, reached southward to the bottom boundary of Edom and the wilderness of Zin at the farthest south, and their south boundary ran from the end of the Dead Sea from the bay that faces southward. And it goes out southward to the ascent of Akrabim, passes to Zin, and goes up to Kadesh Barnea along Hezron and Adar, and makes its turn to Karka. I'm short story all this for you. It's all this. They're describing the borders of it, okay? Passes along to Asmon and goes out by the Wadi of Egypt. That's the Brook of Egypt. A wadi is basically like a river or stream that becomes a dry riverbed, but when the rainy or snowy seasons comes, it gets a flood of water, and then it eventually dries up, okay? And it comes to its end at the sea. This will be your south boundary, okay? So when you hear these people talking about Greater Israel going through the whole Middle East and going from the Nile to Mesopotamia, I used to think that. What you want to know, that God is very clear, okay? The Wadi of Egypt, when you go to your interlinear, you'll see the river of Egypt in King James. Another reason why King James is not as awesome, it's not a river, it's a brook, it's a wadi. Let's see, it's a winter torrent. That's what a wadi is. Remember, it's going to be when the snows melt in the mountaintops, when they do get snow in desert regions. I'm in Phoenix, and we get snow in the desert here. And when that snow melts, you get a rush of rivers. So you have all these trenches built along to take those river rushes so it doesn't flood the streets and stuff like that. But it's gone by the spring, and then you don't have any more. Okay? This is what this is. This is Nakash, Nakala, in its original sense, a stream, a winter torrent in a narrow valley, also a shaft, brook, flood, river, stream, valley. Okay? Now, if you just take the word river, it's Nahar. Okay? And if you take the word we just told you about, it's Nakal. Okay? They're two different words, okay? This is another, King James is brilliant, okay? King James onlyism is a dumb doctrine. I'm sorry. The more you know about the international or the original languages, the more you see the ignorance in the King James, okay? Now, to people in England, did this matter about learning the gospel? No, it didn't, okay? To people who are trying to understand the Old Testament, does this matter about knowing whether or not Israel's territory is this right here, or... Because in the original copy of my Revelation book, I was duped, like everybody else, to thinking the true territory of Israel is this right here. Why? Because it says Jesus is going to rule over Israel, my inheritance, and Assyria, okay? Israel, Egypt, and Assyria, okay? Well, yes, Jesus is going to rule over this, but it doesn't mean that this is going to go to the Jews, okay? Because it says he's going to call them his people, the Egyptians and the Assyrians his people. And so what is going to happen is apparently Jesus is going to have, when he rules, he's going to rule from Jerusalem, and Egypt and Assyria seem to be like confederates or tributaries to him. The point is they have a peaceful buffer state, okay? With Egypt and Israel, what you never have is a promise to the Jews to give them this land here, okay? Because they'll say, oh, it's from the river of Egypt. Yes, the King James says it's the river of Egypt, but if you know that there's two different words, one for river and one for brook. See, I didn't study the original languages back then. I started doing that with my apostles' teaching after I wrote my original book of Revelation. And then I started learning this stuff. And I realized, oh, the King James just likes to take several different words and make it one word because they're trying to make it simple to read for all their ignorant peasants who can barely read anything, okay? And how do you explain what a wadi is to somebody in England who it's wet all the time? Okay, well, it's because sometimes the rivers dry up. You know how, like, no rivers dry up here? It's like that. Nobody's going to make sense of this. They haven't been to the desert. Anyways. So this shall be your boundary, and the east boundary of the Dead Sea to the mouth of the Jordan, and the boundary on the north side runs from the Bay of the Sea that is at the mouth of the Jordan, the Bay of the Sea. See the sea at the mouth of the Jordan? And the boundary goes up to Beth Hoglah and passes to the north of Beth Arba, and boundary shown to Bohan, Reuben's sons. No, I'm sorry. The east boundary is the Dead Sea. So they're saying the Dead Sea at the mouth of the Jordan here. So remember, I said Benjamin and Dan's territory was originally Judah's territory. Okay, so was Simeon's. Okay, Judah takes this huge territory, and Ephraim and Manasseh take these huge territories because they are apparently by far the dominant ones. And Jacob gives these prophecies to Joseph and Judah about being more awesome than the rest. And they take the big swaths of land, and then they give these other guys, they cast lots for the remainder, and also give them territories within their land. So that's why you have Dan, Benjamin, and Simeon pretty much in Judah's territory. So the original is going to be up here by the mouth of the Jordan, where it pours into the Dead Sea. That's Judah's territory. And then it says Beth Hoglah, Beth Araba, house of Hoglah, house of Araba. The stone of Bohan, Reuben's sons. So see right over here, this is where he's over, right where Reuben is, okay? And the boundary goes up to Debir in the valley of Achor. See how the border of Reuben and the border of Benjamin touch? Remember, that was originally Judah's territory. And the opposite of the ascent of Adumim, which is on the south side of the valley, and the boundary passes along the rivers of En Shemesh and En Rogel. And the boundary goes up to the valley of the son of Hinnom, okay? So the valley of the son of Hinnom, remember, this is where the word Gehinnom comes from, okay? Gehinnom becomes a word for the lake of fire, and the reason is because it starts out as being a valley where apparently they are sacrificing children to pass through the fire to Moloch, okay? And then it becomes, after that, because it's corrupt and polluted and nobody wants to build anything there, it becomes basically a landfill, okay? They throw garbage there and they just burn it all the time, okay? And so it becomes this perpetual burning. Where do you throw your trash? if you go to Israel today, I'm not kidding you, if you go to Israel today, they're still throwing their trash down there. You will literally go look down the sides of certain mountains in Israel, and you're like, what are you doing? You've got this nice valley between you, and they just throw their garbage down it. Okay? It's the Valley Hinnom. Okay? At the southern slope of the Jebusites, that is Jerusalem. So notice it's on the side of Jerusalem. So obviously someone's editing that later. The boundary goes up to the mountain that lies over against the Valley Hinnom on the west, and the north in the Valley of the Rephaim. So notice how it's up here. This is their boundary, apparently. And then the boundary extends to the top of the mountains of the springs of the waters of Nephtoah, and there's towns on Mount Ephron. I don't know where that is. And the boundary bends across to Bala, that is Kiriath Jearim. I don't know where that is. Oh, Kiriath Jearim is right here. So apparently they are accounting the southern borders of where Dan is, but somehow this touches right here. Because you're going to have cities that they say is Judah cities, and then it says it's Benjamin cities later. Okay. The boundary circles the west of Bala to Mount Seir, so that's over down here. And passes along Timnah, and the boundary goes off to the slope of the hill of north of Ekron. See Ekron right here. And the boundary bends across Shikharon and passes around Mount Bala, and it goes out to Jabneel, and the boundary comes out to an end at the sea. Boom. Goes to there. And the west boundary was the Mediterranean with its coast, the boundary surrounding the people of Judah according to their families. So they are not allotting the Philistines' territory here. According to the command of the Lord Joshua, he gave Caleb the son of Jephunneh a portion among the people of Judah. Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron. Hebron is the city. Arba was the father of Anak. Arba was the father of Anak. So apparently Arba is the head of the tribe that becomes the Anakim. Okay? He's the father of Anak. And Caleb drove out from these the three sons of Anak, Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak. So so they notice he drive them out. They didn't kill them all. They're like, get out, scat, giant. And they probably killed some. And what is left of them, they're going to be up here, and they're going to go down here, and they're probably going to seek refuge among the Philistines. And because they're giants, they become their champions for their 5 lords of the Philistines and the 5 giants, okay? So it doesn't get into Goliath's ancestry, but he is somehow related to the Anakims, okay? From here he went up against the inhabitants of Debir, and the name of Debir was formerly Kiriath Sefer. And Caleb said, whoever attacks Kiriath Sefer and takes it, I will give him my daughter Aksah to wife. And he's like, really? And he had a brother who kind of was watching that girl grow up, and he was like, she's cute, and she's blooming like a flower. And his name was Othniel, the son of Kenaz. He's going to be the first of the judges. The brother of Caleb took it and gave him his daughter, and Achash was his wife. And apparently marrying your niece was cool back then. I don't think it's actually forbidden in the law to marry your brother's daughter. Okay? So, I don't know how old she was, but that was cool back then. When she came to him, she urged his father for a field, and she dismounted from her donkey, and Caleb said, what do you wish? And he said, give me a present, since you have set me in the land of the Negev. Negev is largely desertous. Give me springs of water as well. So Caleb gave her upper springs and lower springs. So apparently there's some upper springs and lower springs, and Gedi, I think, is part of that, and that's why it's desertified, but they have some springs of water. So there you go. So since we got a kind of a desertified land, why don't you give us some springs of water, bro? And he does. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the people of Judah according to their families. And the towns belonging to the tribe of the people of Judah in the extreme south towards the boundary of Edom were Kabzeel, Edur, and Jagur. I don't see any of those on this map. Kena, Dimona, Adada, Kadesh, Hazor, Ithnan, Ziph, Telem, Beloth, Hazor, Hadatta, Kiriath Hezron, that is Hazor. There's many towns named Hazor. Aman, Shema, Maloda, Hazar, Gada, Heshbon. Makes me wonder what Hazor means. So Hazor is a pretty generic word for city or stronghold, apparently, in Semitic languages. So you're going to see Hazor a lot. Hezron, which is Hazor, okay? Hazar, Gada, that's why Hazar is probably like saying Gadaville, Gadaburg, right? It's like saying the city of Shaul, the city of Gada, okay? Hazar Shual, Beersheba, Bezonath. So you're going to see Beth something, that's house of, so it's probably named after a family. Hazor is kind of like city of or the stronghold of. And then, I don't know, there's just going to be other places like that. Then it says, let's see, Bala, Am, Azem, Eltodad, Chazil, Horma, Ziklag. Ziklag is where David's going to chill later. You want to pay attention to that one. Goes to Simeon. Madama, Sanaza, Leboath, Shilem, Ain, Rimon. These cities are 29 with their villages in the valley of Eshtol, Zora, Ashna, Zanawa, Agamanim, Tapua, Anam, Jarmuth, Adulam, Soka, Azekah. And Sharam and Aditham and Gederathaim, 14 cities with their villages, Zenon and Hadashah and Migdalgad and Dilin and Mezpah and Joktheel. And Lachish is going to come into play later. Bozkath and Eglon and Kaban and Laman and Kitlish and Gederath, Beth Gadon and Nama and Makeda, 16 cities with their villages, Libnah and Ether and Ashan and Jiptha and Ashna and Nezeb and Keilah and Akzib and Marashah, 9 cities with their villages. Ekron with their towns and villages. Ekron, remember, is one of these ones where they chase the kings downhill, and then they chased them to Ekron, and they took Ekron. From Ekron, even in the sea, all that lay near Ashdod with their villages. So at one point in time, they took all this down here, but the Philistines start pushing back. This is what we're going to find out. The Philistines are going to push back, and they're pretty much going to take a lot of southern Judah and the Danites' territory. That's what's going to happen, okay? Ashdod with their towns and their villages, Gaza with their towns and their villages unto the river of Egypt, the great sea and the border thereof. In the mountains, Shamir, Jatir, Sukkot, Dahana, Kirjath Sana, which is Debir, obviously, and Anab, and Ashtemo, and Anim, and Goshen, and Holon. They got another Goshen here. How's that? And Gilo, 11 cities with their villages, Arab, and Duma, and Ishian, and Janum, and Bethopah, and Aphakah, and Hubtah, and Kirath Arba, which is Hebron, we've said that 4 times, and Zior, 9 cities with their villages, Maon, Carmel, Ziph, Juta, and Jezreel, and Jokdeam, and Zanoah, and Cain, and Gibeah. Gibeah is where the guys fooled them, remember? Fool me once, shame on me. And then they're going to start buggering everybody, apparently, in Gibeon, and Gibeon is going to become corrupt. And Timnah, 10 cities and their villages, and Halhul, and Bethzur, and Gedor, and Marath, and Bethanoah, and Elkatan, 6 cities with their villages, and Kirath Baal, and Kirath Jearim, and Rabbah, 2 cities and their villages. Oh, which is Kirath Jearim, of course. In the wilderness of Beth Arabah is Midin and Sekakah, and Nishban in the valley of Salt, and Engedi, 6 cities with their villages. As for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Jerusalem and at Jerusalem to the day. Children of Judah. Okay? So Jerusalem, remember, it's a fortified city on the top of a mountain, and it's kind of tough to get at. They have their own brooks and stuff like that, and it's tough to besiege. So we didn't get around to that. We'll get to that later. The lot of the children of Joseph. So this is all Judah right here. Now the children of Joseph fell from Jordan by Jericho to the well of the water by Jericho. So here's Jericho right here. On the east, the wilderness, the children go up from Jericho on Mount Bethel. So notice if you got Benjamin and Reuben and Manasseh and Gad, they're all kind of connecting right here where they went across to Jericho, okay? Why? That's apparently the main road in. And that's a good place to have 4 different tribes connect, right? And Ephraim, it doesn't say, let's see, that goes out to Bethel. There's Bethel right here. See how that's in Benjamin? So apparently they share that city. It's like on their border, okay? And passes along the borders of Arkai and Adaroth and goes down westward to Japhleti and Beth-horon and Nether and Gezer and this goings out of the sea. So the children of Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim took their inheritance. So they're like, you can have all that. All that. Now split it up. And the border of the children of Ephraim, according to their families, was thus. Even the border of their inheritance was on the east side of Adaroth Adar and Beth-horon, the upper. And the border went out to the southward to the sea of Mikmethlah on the north side. So wherever that is, there's apparently a little sea here somewhere. And the border went eastward towards Tanath Shiloh, and it passed in the east towards Janoah. And it went from Janoah to Adaroth and Nerath, and it came to Jericho. So apparently originally Ephraim and went out to Jordan. So originally, originally Ephraim also had this borderland right here. Okay? I don't know how Manasseh went. They're split up. And it went down from Genoa to Adaroth and Naroth, and it came to Jericho and went out Jordan. And the border went out from Tapua westward to the river Kana, and the goings out thereof were at the sea. This is the inheritance of the children of Ephraim by their families. And the separate cities for the children of Ephraim were among the inheritance of the children of Manasseh, all the cities and villages. So it says, and the separate cities for the children of Ephraim were among the inheritance of the children of Manasseh, all the cities with their villages. So apparently they're sharing this territory. It's Manasseh's territory, but there's separate cities for Ephraimites that are among. So they got some cities among the Manassites' territory. And when you get to the split between the northern and southern kingdoms, Judah and Benjamin are going to be on one side. The last of the Danites are going to skedaddle, and they're going to go to Ethiopia, apparently. Ephraim and Manasseh, remember, they're all up here. That's going to form the core or the heartland of the northern kingdom, okay? And they drave not out the Canaanites that dwelt near Gezer, because they were old Gezers. So apparently down here where Dan is. So they're Dan is kind of sandwiched between the Philistines and the Ephraimites, and that was mostly Judah and Ephraim's problem, and they weren't helping out, so the Danites got squeezed out. But the Canaanites dwell among the Ephraimites to this day, and they serve under tribute. So apparently, in these days, they still dwelt there and were still serving tribute. So we're assuming that's in the days of Samuel. They're still there. Okay. There was also a lot for the tribe of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph. For Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, the father of Gilead, for he was a man of war. Therefore, he had Gilead and Bashan. Okay. Remember, this Machir would have been the firstborn, which means he would have been born in Egypt, which he definitely died in Egypt. Or he would have died in Egypt under the captivity, except he moved out before then and apparently got this before then. This is because you're going to read about, if you study the Hyksos, you're going to read about the first king of the Hyksos taking some land that seems to be up in Aramean territory. Okay? And Joseph, in Genesis 49, I think, he gives his territory to Joseph or Manasseh that he conquered with his bow and his sword, he says. Okay? So apparently, while the Jews are still in favor in Egypt, they go out and conquer this territory, and he gives it to Machir. Okay? And they're going to stay there. Og, the king of Bashan, is going to have the dominion of the surrounding land because the Amorites are going to keep getting stronger and stronger. Their cousins, the Hittites, are going to keep getting stronger and stronger. And the Egyptians are going to eventually take over and subjugate the Jews, so you're not going to have help from them anymore. Okay? But they're still there. They still survive. Okay? They marry in with the Arameans, and they seem to have some back from the Arameans. Okay? And you're going to see these alliances between the Arameans and northern Israel, probably because of the Manassites and the half-tribe of the Gileadites, that are going to come into play until they all get taken into captivity against Assyria. And these guys are going to team up against Judah. Okay? They're going to fight against each other at times, though, because remember, the kings are from the Ephraimites, not the Manassites. Okay? And the Ephraimites and the Manassites are going to fight sometimes. There's also a lot. Let's see here. There was also a lot for the rest of the children of Manasseh and their families, for the children of Abiezer and the children of Helek and the children of Azriel, which are the children of Shechem, and for the children of Shechem and for the children of Hefer. Now, this would be curious to me. Because notice you see Manasseh, and it says the children of Abiezer, Helek, and Azriel, and the children of Shechem. Okay? These are the sons of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, and his sister Hameleketh bare Ishad, Abiezer, and Mahelah, and the sons of Shemitah were Ahian, and Shechem, and Likhi, and Aniam. So apparently, Shemitah has a son named Shechem. I wanted to know if that were possibly the Shechemites that they took as servants, but those apparently married in or just stayed as servants. And the children of Hefer, for the children of Shemitah, these were male children of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, by their families. But Zelophehad, the son of Hefer, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, had no sons but daughters. And these are the names of the daughters: Mahlah, and Noah, and Hoglah, and Milcah, and Tirzah. Those are the ones who asked for land from Moses. And they came near Eleazar the priest, before Joshua the son of Nun, before the princes, saying, the Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance among the brethren, so you got to give it to us. And therefore, according to the command of the Lord, he gave them inheritance among the brethren of their father. Coffee. And there fell 10 portions to Manasseh beside the land of Gilead and Bashan, which were on the other side of the Jordan. So 10 portions, that's a lot. I don't know how much a portion is, but it's a lot. Because the daughters of Manasseh had inheritance among his sons, and the rest of Manasseh's sons had the land of Gilead. So this land is not just divided among the tribes, it's divided among the clans within the tribes, okay? So you should have a ballpark of something like 70 divisions in the land, because remember, there were 70 clans, according to the tribes of Israel. So all these states are going to have like counties, if you will, okay? And those counties, remember, a county comes from the name of a count, which is like you have a duke, archdukes, blah, 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 right? So it's like tiers of patriarchy, okay? You have something similar with the Germans in Europe, okay? And that's where we get names like counties, okay? State is what we would call like a kingdom or a territory or a nation. And a county would be a sub-district of a state. But they had stuff like that. Well, these guys would have had, if you will, duchies or counties within their territory, and they would have been going to these different heads of these different tribes. That's ours. And this is going to be very important when they come back from the captivity, okay? Knowing who they are and what land was historically theirs was very important, okay? It didn't just be like, here, all you Judites go over there and fight over, the actual property lines, okay? And those property lines would have been probably subdivided among families and stuff down the lines, and they would have had documents and stuff like that proving when they got the land, okay? And there fell 10 portions to Manasseh besides the land of Gilead. Okay, we said this. The coast of Manasseh was from Asher up here to Michmash, which lies before Shechem, and the border along the right hand of the inhabitants of Antapua. And Manasseh had the land of Tapua, and Tapua and the border of Manasseh belonged to the children of Ephraim. I don't know where Tapua is. And the coast descended to the river of Kana, southward to the river. These cities of Ephraim were among the cities of Manasseh. The coast of Manasseh was also on the north side of the river. Let's see if we can get some. But Tapua on the border of Manasseh belonged to the children of Ephraim, and the coast descended to the river of Kana. There's the Kana River. Look at this. It's all there, y'all. Southward of the river in the cities of Ephraim, and among the cities of Manasseh were the coast of Manasseh were on the north side of the river and goings out of the sea. So that was the border between Ephraim and Manasseh. Southward it was Ephraim's, northward it was Manasseh's, and the sea as its border. They met together at Asher in the north and Issachar in the east. Let's look at that. Issachar in the east, Asher in the north. There you go. And Manasseh had in Issachar and in Asher Beth-shean and her towns, and Ibleam and her towns, and the inhabitants of Dor and her towns, and the inhabitants of Endor and her towns, and the inhabitants of Tanakh and her towns, and the inhabitants of Megiddo in her towns, even 3 countries. I would imagine 3 countries is like saying 3 regions, okay? So it looks like these guys also had cities, they had cities from way back in the day that were in the other person's territory, but that's their city, okay? Yet the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of those cities, but the Canaanites would dwell in that land. Well, turns out they took responsible for taking over those cities from the Canaanites because they were the bigger tribe, and they never pulled it off, okay? Yet it came to pass when the children of Israel were waxen strong, they put the Canaanites to tribute, and they didn't utterly drive them out. You suck. The children of Joseph spake to Joshua, saying, Why hast thou given us but one lot and one portion to inherit, seeing that I am a great people, for as much as the Lord had blessed me hitherto? And they're saying, look, we're a great people, and all we get is this, and Manasseh gets all this. Why have you only given me this? Hey, lots fall in the lap, and every decision is from the Lord, my friend. I'm sorry that we got all this, and you got just this, okay? The children of Joseph is saying this. Who's the children of Joseph? These people who got all this, complaining about how little they got? No, it's probably the Ephraimites. And so Joshua answered them, he is an Ephraimite, If thou be a great people, then get thee up out of the wood country, and cut down for thyself the land of the Perizzites, and of the giants, and if Mount Ephraim be too narrow for thee. He's like, you want more land, go take it. If you got giants and Canaanites down there, why don't you take their land? Punks. And the children of Joseph said, The hill is not enough for us, and all the Canaanites that dwell in the land in the valley have chariots of iron, both they and they who are at Beth-shean and their towns and all that live in the valley of Jezreel. They've got metal chariots. We can't break those with our fists. That's what they said. And Joshua spake to the house of Jacob, even to Ephraim and Manasseh, saying, Thou art a great people and hast great power. Thou shalt not have one lot only, but the mountain shall be thine, for it is a wood, and you shall cut it down, and the goings out will be thine. You shall drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots and though they be strong. Quit being a little punk. Get yours. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle and the congregation there, and the land was subdued before them. So Shiloh is an important place through the book of Judges, because Shiloh is where the tabernacle and the ark are going to stay until the days of Samuel. Okay? So for the next, close to 400 years, it's going to stay right here. Joshua's going to be up in that area. See Laboa, there's Elaroth, there's Jericho. It's kind of uphill from there. This is kind of like smack dab in the middle of Ephraimite territory. Why? Because Joshua. That's why. And there remain among the children of Israel 7 tribes who have not yet received their inheritance. So this is apparently where they're all meeting to do this divvying up thing. And this is also where they're going to meet to when they want to go to war or something like that, okay? Like, hey, we have a problem. So this is kind of like a de facto capital. Remember, they don't have a capital city like a Jerusalem yet, okay? You're not going to get their first capital until Saul reigns from Gibeah. Or I think he's from Gibeon. He's right here, and that's kind of a ways away. And then eventually you're going to have, see Jebus down here? Jebus is Jerusalem, okay? That eventually is going to become the capital. And Shiloh is kind of the main place, and it's going to be close to, see, Bethel is where the northern kingdom is going to have their kingdoms. So you see Bethel to Jebus, they're right up the street from each other. But they're all in the mountains, and it's tough to take someone out of the mountains. And Joshua said to the children of Israel, how long are you going to slack to go possess the land which the Lord gave your fathers gave you? He's like, we cast lots for it. It's yours. Go get it. Give out from among you 3 men from each tribe, and I will send them, and they will rise and go through the land and describe it according to the inheritance I gave them, and they shall come again to me. So this is what they're going to do. This is kind of like what they did to go out and spy the land in the first place. They're going to send out 3 guys from each tribe, and they're going to be like, you guys go spy out the land, what remains that we haven't divvied up, because apparently all the dominant tribes got theirs first, okay? And then they said, you divide it into 7 portions that you think are good for 7 tribal allotments, okay? And you take those tribal allotments and come back to us, okay? 7 portions. Not this is what we want and this is what we want, just 7 portions. And we're going to cast lots for each one of you gets which. Why did he do that? Because he made sure that they divvied them out to be of about equal value, so that way when you get your lot, you can't complain later, okay? And they shall divide it in 7 parts. Judah shall abide in their coast on the south, and the house of Joseph shall abide in their coast on the north. Okay? What are they saying? They're saying basically Judah and the house of Joseph are going to be the main 2 houses that see to the outward borders of Israel. Okay? It's mostly their responsibility. So this is why you have the Manassites here. Up here, and they've got the north covered, and they're down here, and they're mostly sandwiched between the Manassites, and they're sandwiched between Ephraim and Judah. Okay, that's kind of how these smaller tribes are saying basically we're primarily responsible for your military defense. And you shall therefore describe the land in 7 parts and bring the description to me, that we may cast lots before the Lord. But the Levites have no part among you, for the priesthood of the Lord is their inheritance, and Gad and Reuben, the half tribe of Manasseh, have received their inheritance beyond the Jordan of the east, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them. And the men arose and went their way, and Joshua charged them that they should describe the land, saying, go walk through the land and describe it, and come again to me, that they may be here, and cast lots for you, as before the Lord in Shiloh. And the men came and passed through the land, and described it by cities, in 7 parts in a brook, and they came again to Joshua in the host at Shiloh. And Joshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before the Lord, and there Joshua divided the land into Israel according to their divisions, and the lot of the tribe of Benjamin came up according to their families. The coast of their lot came forth between the children of Judah and the children of Joseph. There you go. And the border of their north side was from the Jordan, and the border of the west side was from Jericho on the north side. Went up to the mountains westwards, and then going out in the wilderness of Bethaven. And the border went from there to Luz, and the side of Luz, which is Bethel. Southward, and the border descended to Adaroth Adar, near the hill that lies on the south side near Beth Horon. And the border was drawn thence and encompassed the corner of the sea southward, which the hill which lieth before Beth Horon southward, and the goings of thereof were at Kirath Baal and Kirath Jearim, the city of the children of Judah. This is the west quarter. and the south quarter was from the end of Kiriath Jearim, and the border went out to the west and out of the waters of Nephtoah. So you see this. Remember, all these cities were listed in Judah's territory, but what they are is the cities that are at the borders of the territory. So you're going to have roads that connect, and those roads become where the cities are built, okay? And so what you're going to have is probably cities that are like, they're Benjamites who live here and they're Judahites who live here, because it's kind of an intersection between their territory, just like you have highways and byways and cities built around them today, okay? And the border came down to the end of the mountain, lies before the valley and the son of Hinnom, and which is on the valley south of Giants. In the north descended the valley of Hinnom, the side of Jebusi on the south, and descended towards Engroel. So they're right up to Jerusalem, see? And it was drawn in the north and went forth from En-Shemesh and went forth towards Gialoth, which is over against the going up of Adumim, and descended to the stone of Bahan, which is the son of Reuben, and passed towards the side along the Arabah northward, and went down to Arabah. And the border passed along the side of Beth Hoglah northwards, and the outgoings of the border were at the north bay of the Salt at the south end of the Jordan. This was the south coast. And Jordan was the border of it on the east side, and this was the inheritance of the children of Benjamin. So they apparently, once upon a time, Judah had this, and they apparently gave portions of their border to Benjamin. And so now Benjamin has a nice slice here because they're connected to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, they're right in between 7 other tribes. Jacob is going to prophesy to Judah that he's going to carry Benjamin on his shoulders. So it looks like Benjamin is up here in the highlands of Judah on his shoulders, being carried here, and he's got these great cities, and he's basically at a major trade intersection of everyone else. So Benjamin's going to be pretty well off, even though they're a smaller tribe, and a lot of them are going to get wiped out. But we know what affluence does to people. It Sodom and Gomorrahizes them, and that's what's going to happen to the Benjamites. Now the city of the tribe of the children of Benjamin, according to their families, were Jericho and Beth Hoglah in the valley of Kaziz, and Beth Arba and Zemaram and Bethel, and Avim and Perah and Orpha Winfrey, and Sheriff Hammoni and Ophni and Gaba, 12 cities with their villages, Gibeon and Rabbah and Beeroth and Mizpah and Chipherah and Moza, and Rechem and Irpil and Tarlah, and Zelah and Epesh and Jebusi, which is Jerusalem. So the Benjamites originally got Jerusalem, but they couldn't take it. Gibeath and Kirijath, 14 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the children of Benjamin according to their families. The Benjamites got Jerusalem originally, but they couldn't take it from the Jebusites. So the Judahites got it. The second lot came forth to Simeon. I'm surprised the Benjamites didn't be like, okay, that's ours. Thanks for clearing it out. We'll take Jerusalem now. So the second lot came from Simeon, even from the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families, and their inheritance was within the inheritance of Judah. They had their inheritance in Beersheba. Remember, you're going to hear from Dan to Beersheba. Dan's the city furthest north. Beersheba is the city furthest south. This is all pretty much desert down here, so there's not much going on, except for occasional raiding and pillaging and killing Amalekites. The Hazar Shual, the Bala, the Azem, the El Tolad, and Bethul, and Hormah, and Ziklag, and Bethra, Beth-Markaboth, and Hazar Susa, and Bethel Baoth, and Sharhuhen. I feel like George Bush pronouncing. You guys gonna see George Bush? I think Will Ferrell does this thing with him when it's George Bush pronouncing all these foreign cities, and he looks really proud of himself. 13 cities and their villages. Ain, Ramon, Ethur, Ashan, 4 cities and their villages, and all the villages that were round about in these cities. Baaleth-beer, Ramoth of the south. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Simeon, according to their families. Out of the portion of the children of Judah was the inheritance of the children of Simeon, for the part of the children of Judah was too much for them. Therefore the children of Simeon had their inheritance within the inheritance of them. Yeah, how come you guys got too much land for you? Well, we have Joshua and Caleb. Joshua and Caleb are bosses. Only Caleb was an Ephraimite, or Joshua was an Ephraimite, and he didn't give them extra stuff. But apparently, my guess is that the majority of the fighting forces that are really taking charge are probably Judahites and Manassites, and that's why it goes down the way it is. It seems like they seem to have the boss armies. And remember, the Gileadites are half Judahites and Manassites, and they've probably been at this fighting thing for hundreds of years. They're good at it. And the third lot came up from the children of Zebulun according to their families, and the border of their inheritance was unto Sarid. And the border went up towards the city in Maralah and reached to Debasheth and reached the river that is before Jokneam. and turned to Sarid eastward towards the sun rising on the border of Chisloth Tabor that goes out to Dabaroth and goes up to Japhia, and from thence passeth along on the east side of Gittahefer and Ikakazin, and goes out to Ramoth Methoar and Nia, and the border compasses on the south side to Hanathon, and the outgoings thereof are in the valley of Jiphtahel, and Katla and Nahal and Shimram and Idla and Bethlehem, 12 cities and their villages. So Bethlehem is, apparently there's another Bethlehem for Simeon. And this is the inheritance of the children of Zebulun according to their families, these cities with their villages. And the fourth lot came out to Issachar, and the children of Issachar according to their families, and the border was towards Jezreel and Shesuloth and Shunem and Hapharim and Sihon and Anaharath and Rabbath and Kishion and Abez and Rameth and Engamenim and Enhadah and Beth Pazez. And it reaches to Tabor and Shahazimah and Beth Shemesh and the outgoing of the borders of Jordan, 16 cities and their villages. So Zebulun's up here. You only see Ramon, Perez, apparently. But somehow they have a whole bunch of cities in there. They're just small cities, okay? This is the inheritance of the children of Issachar, according to their families and their villages. The fifth lot came for the tribe of the children of Asher, according to their... Oh, I'm sorry, Jezreel is Issachar, okay. And the Jezreel Valley is where some fighting tends to go on. You're going to hear about that a little bit. And children of Asher, according to their families, the border was Helka, up here, look at this. Helka and Hali and Beten and Akshaph and Alamelech and Amad and Mishael that reached toward Kamrath westward and Shiho-Libnath. Now notice how they're surrounding the cities of Sidon, okay? I'm of the opinion that Tyre, at least the island outcropping city of Tyre, is not Sidonian. I have a feeling that that is a colony of Troy. That's my theory. Tyrus and Tyre is named after that, and that's a colony in which they trade with the Sidonians, but they're not Sidonians. And I have a theory that Hiram is, because he gets visited by the same, this is in Tatian the Assyrian. He accounts how Hiram gets visited by the same Agamemnon who sacks Troy around that time, okay? I don't know what's going on there. If he's like taking over the trade with that city or telling him he sacked Troy and if you mess with us, you're next. I don't know, but he visits him there. And it's around the time that Hiram apparently is having a daughter married to Solomon, and Solomon's going to build a temple. They're surrounded by Jews, but they're trading in the sea, so they're fine with that, okay? And they don't have to deal with anyone attacking them, so they're good. And that's how they become frenemies. But the Jezebel is from the priestly family of the Sidonians of the priesthood of Baal, and so they're definitely Sidonians, and they eventually kill the King Hiram's descendants and take over. And the last of King Hiram's descendants, which is like her aunt, because they're married in with them, just like the Levites and the line of David are married in together. And Jezebel's aunt establishes Carthage, okay? But they kill him and take over, okay? And then they marry in with northern Israel and they corrupt him. So the border of the land of Jezreel and Chesuloth and Shunem and Hepharim and Shihon and Anharath and Rabbath and Kizon and Abez and Jamath and Engamamim and Hadadah and Beth Pazez. And the coast reached from Tabor and Shamazima and Beth Shemesh, and the goings outward of Jordan, 60 cities and their villages. I feel like I'm repeating something. This is the inheritance of the tribe of Issachar according to the families of the villages. And the fifth lot came to the children of Asher according to their families, and the border was Helkath and Hali and Beten and Akshaph and Alamelech and Amad and Mishael, and reached to Carmel westward, Shihor-Libnath, and turned towards the sun rising at Beth Dagon, and reached towards Zebulun, the valley of Jiphthahel. So Beth Dagon is the house of Dagon. So you probably have something culty going on down here. Dagon is worshipped by the Philistines, but I don't think they're the only ones who worship him. Reached unto Zebulun in the valley of Jiphthahel, towards the north side of Bethmek and Neel that goes out to Kabul and on the left hand, on your left hand side. And Hebron and Rehob and Haman and Kana even go to Great Zidon. So there's another Hebron. That's interesting because it's right up here where supposedly Heber and Shem are buried in this region. Because there's Asher up here, and this would have been like Mount Hermon and the Golan Heights right up here. And so that seems to be, that could potentially be where Heber was buried. Hebron. They could have got pushed out of here and went north up here, and that's where they settled down and died. And the coast turned to Ramah and the strong city of Tyre, and the coast turns to Hosa, and the goings out thereof are the sea at the coast of Akzib. So Tyre, notice it's called to the strong city of Tyre. Now remember, some of these are names. See, it says Sor, a place in Palestine, Tyre, Tyrus. Okay. This is the first mention of Tyre in the Bible. Okay. Now, Troy wouldn't have been sacked yet, and Troy would have been a trade city, and they could have been setting out colonies, and this could have been like Tyre is named after Tyrus, which is where the Thracians are named after, and also Troy is named after. Okay, so I have a theory that that's a trade colony, but we don't really know. All we know is the people involved. They're some of the people involved with the Sea Peoples. And the Sea Peoples seem to get all up in Anatolia and the Greek area and Egypt and stuff like that. And they seem to trade with Egypt. And north of them is Byblos, which is going to trade with Egypt and get into papyrus and writing and stuff like that and spread it to the Greeks. Okay? So, this is the inheritance of the children of, let's see, Umma. And the outgoings thereof in the sea of the coast of Akaz, Umma also. Umma Thurman was part of their lot. Aphek and Rehob, 20 and 2 cities with their villages. This is the inheritance of the tribe, the children of Asher, according to their families, and the cities with their villages. And the 6th lot came out to the children of Naphtali, even the children of Naphtali, according to their families. And the coast was from Heleph to Elan to Zenanim and Adami and Nekeb and Jabneel and unto Lakum, and the goings thereof were at Jordan. And then the coast turneth westward towards Aznoth Tabor, and goes out from thence to Hokok, and reaches to Zebulun on the south side, and reaches to Asher on the west side, and Judah upon Jordan towards the sun risings. And the fenced cities are Ziddim and Zer and Hamath and Rakah and Chinneroth and Adamah and Ramah and Azor and Kadesh and Edrei and Azor and Iron. They have a city named Iron. That's awesome. Migdalel, Horam, Bethanah, Beth Shemesh, 19 cities with their villages. And remember, Naphtali they get Hazor. See how Dan is up here in Naphtali's territory? This is the inheritance of the children of Naphtali according to their territories and their cities and their villages. And the 7th lot came out from the tribe of Dan according to their families. So notice of all the tribes, Dan's the last. Last, Dan. What do you get? Oh, the land between the Canaanites that the Ephraimites can't defeat and the Philistines that the Judahites can't defeat. You're going to get that. That's what you're going to get, Dan. And the coast of their inheritance was Zorah and Eshtaol and Ir-Mesh and Shalabin and Ajalon and Jethlah and Elon and Thimnath and Ekron and Eltekah and Gibeathon and Beleth and Jehud and Benabarek and Gathramon and Mejarkon and Rakon and the border of Japho. And the coast of the children of Dan went out too little for them. It was too small for them. When they say coast, they don't necessarily mean coast. They mean the borders. The borders went out too little for them. In other words, this is small. Remember, the Danites have the 2nd largest army next to Judah, okay? They are not a small people, and yet they get this tiny little slice, about the size of the Benjamites' territory. They get this tiny little port. Joppa is not big today. It never was big, okay? And then they get this mountainous region. It goes down the mountains into the valleys, and they're completely bordered by, because yes, they took Ekron, but the Philistines are going to take all this back, Gath, Ekron, and all that. And so the Philistines are going to press back on all this. The Canaanites are right down here, and these are the ones that Ephraimites are complaining about with their iron chariots. And Dan's just sandwiched in between them, and they're mostly pressed up in the mountains up here, even though they got the second largest army next to Judah. And nobody seems to want to gather up with the Danites and help them expand their territory, so they're going to take matters into their own hands. Therefore, the children of Dan went up to fight against Lashem. See, this is Dan. It's called Lashem or Laish. They took it and smote it with the edge of the sword and possessed it and dwelt therein. They called Lashem Dan after Dan their father. And they get the habit of conquering stuff and calling it Dan and Din and Dnipro and Don and Dan and Don all over the place, okay? This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Dan according to their families, these cities with their villages. When they had made an end of dividing the land for an inheritance to their coast, the children of Israel gave an inheritance to Joshua, the son of Nun among them. So they want to honor Joshua. Joshua hooked up Caleb. Nobody's hooked up Joshua because Joshua's a humble guy. He's like, I am just here to win the fight and die, okay? According to the word of the Lord, they gave him the city which he asked, Timnath Serah, Mount Ephraim. He built a city and dwelt therein. These are the inheritance of Eleazar the priest. Joshua the son of Nun, the heads of the fathers, the tribes of the children of Israel, divided for inheritance by lot in Shiloh before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So they made an end of dividing the country. I want you to think about Joshua's life for a minute. He was 40 years old serving Moses in the wilderness. He was apparently Moses' right-hand guy. He was serving him. He was a good guy. He still has to spend 40 years in the wilderness. Then he has to spend 5 years leading battles. Then he gets there and he's got a short in his like 90. I think he lives to be like 110 or something like that. He's old, but he lives the last old years of his life settled down for about 15 years, okay? This dude has had a hard life. Divide for inheritance, so they made an end of dividing country. Then the Lord also spake to Joshua, so this is important. The Lord says this to Joshua, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, Appoint for you cities of refuge, whereof I spoke to you by the hand of Moses, that the slayer that kills any person unawares and unwittingly may flee thither, and they shall be your refuge to the avenger of blood. And when he doth flee unto one of those cities, he shall stand at the entering of the gate of the city and declare his cause in the ears of the elders of that city, and they shall take him into the city unto them and give him a place that he may dwell among them. And if the avenger of blood pursue after him, then they shall not deliver up the slayer into his hand, because he smote his neighbor unwittingly and hated him not before time. In other words, if it's a crime of passion, I caught this guy sleeping with my wife and I hit him in the head. I caught this guy trying to steal my horse and I hit him in the head. Me and this guy got in a fight because he said my mama was a panda bear, and I hit him in the head and he died. I didn't mean to kill him. I didn't lie in wait. I didn't plot on this dude, okay? I didn't have a plan with his wife, okay? And he shall dwell in that city until he stand before the congregation of the judgment, until the death of the high priest that shall be in those days. Then shall the slayer return and come to the town of his city, and then to his own house, and to the city whereof he fled. So I'm not trying to be underhanded or anything, but if your priest is very old and you got a dude that you just don't like and want to have an accident, that would be the time to do it. And I'm sure people game that system, okay? Then they appointed Kadesh in Galilee to Mount Naphtali, and Shechem in Mount Ephraim, and Kiriath Jarba, which is in Hebron, in the mountain of Judah. And on the other side of Jordan, by Jericho eastward, they assigned Bezra in the wilderness upon the plain upon the tribe of Reuben, and Ramoth Gilead out of the tribe of Gad, and Golan and Bashan out of the tribe of Manasseh. These were the cities appointed for all the children of Israel, and for the stranger that sojourneth among them. And whoever killeth any person at unawares might flee thither, and not die by the hand of the avenger of the blood, until he stood before the congregation. Remember, the avenger of the blood, this thing has been going on since Noah, okay? For people who are like, we shouldn't have a death penalty, the avenger of blood is a ordinance for all humankind from the days of Noah, okay? If you multiply people who have murdered people and have not paid the penalty, and I mean murder, because the Bible is clearly making a distinction between murder and manslaughter, I mean murder. If you are multiplying people who murder and they're not paying the penalty, eventually the land will vomit you out. God will take care of that. Okay? Just think about that. Then came near the heads of the families of the Levites unto Eleazar the priest, and unto Joshua the son of Nun, and unto the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel. And they spake unto them at Shiloh in the land of Canaan, saying, The Lord commanded by the hand of Moses to give us cities to dwell in, with the suburbs thereof for our cattle. And the children of Israel gave unto the Levites out of their inheritance and the commandments of the Lord these cities and these suburbs. And a lot came out of the family of the Kohathites, and the children of Aaron the priest, which were of the Levites, had by lot out of the tribe of Judah, and out of the tribe of Simeon, and out of the tribe of Benjamin, 13 cities. And the rest of the children of Kohath had by lot out of the families of the tribe of Ephraim, and out of the tribe of Dan, and out of the half tribe of Manasseh, 10 cities. And the children, so notice it's saying by lot, which means they're literally just like, okay, put all the names of your cities in a hat. These are the cities they get. That's their city. You got to give them housing and land and grazing lands for their herds and stuff like that in that city, because they don't get land, but they get housing and stuff, privileges. The rest of the children of Kohath had by lot out of the families of the tribe of Ephraim, out of the tribe of Dan, and out of the half tribe of Manasseh, 10 cities. The children of Gershon had a lot by the tribe of the families of Issachar, and the tribe of Asher, and the tribe of Naphtali. And out of the half tribe of Manasseh, Bashan, 13 cities. Children of Merari by their families had out of the tribe of Reuben, and out of the tribe of Gad, and out of their tribe of Zebulun. Reuben, Gad, and Zebulun, 12 cities. And the children of Israel gave by lot to the Levites these cities with their suburbs, as the Lord commanded by the hand of Moses. And they gave out of the tribe of children of Judah, out of the tribe of the children of Simeon, these cities that were mentioned by name, which were the children of Aaron, being the families of the Kohathites, who are of the children of Levi, had for theirs was first lot. And they gave them the city of Arba, the father of Anak, which is the city of Hebron. So all this stink about getting Hebron for Caleb, and he's like, I want Hebron. And it's like, too late, that goes to the Levites. Now, I'm sure they shared it. I don't think the Levites just took it over and kicked everyone out, but they were allotted housing and all that stuff in that city. But the fields of the city, the villages thereof, gave they to Caleb the son of Jephunneh for his possession. So they don't get the land, but they do get to dwell in the city. Okay? Thus they gave to the children of Aaron, the priest of Hebron, with their suburbs in the city, a refuge for the slayer, and Libnah with her suburbs. So we got Hebron, I don't know where Libnah is, and Holon with her suburbs, and Debir with her suburbs, and Ain with her suburbs, and Jotta with her suburbs, and Beth-Shemesh with her suburbs, 9 cities out of those 2 tribes. And out of the tribe of Benjamin, Gibeon with her suburbs, and Geba with her suburbs. This is important. Gibeon is the city that they have all the raping going on, where they cut up that woman into 12 pieces to spread around to show how awful it is. And it's a Levite who's staying there with his concubine. These are a city that they're supposed to have a portion of housing in, and yet he sends there, and his concubine gets raped to death. I might get Gibeon and Gibeon mixed up. No, it is Gibeon. It is Gibeon. And I think Saul comes from that city later on, generations later. Not a good sign. I'm probably making mistakes, though, because Gibeon and Gibeon are right next to each other, and they both sound alike. Anathoth with her suburbs, and Almon with her suburbs, 4 cities, and the city of the children of Aaron, the priests, were 13 cities and their suburbs, and the families of the children of Kohath, the Levites, which remained of the children of Kohath, even they had cities by their lot, out of the tribe of Ephraim. For they gave them Shechem with her suburbs, Mount Ephraim to be a city of refuge for the slayer, and Gezer with her suburbs, and Kibzaim with her suburbs, and Beth-horon with her suburbs, and 4 cities, and out of the tribe of Dan, Eltekah with her suburbs, and Gibeathon with her suburbs, Aijalon with her suburbs, Gath-Rimmon with her suburbs, 4 cities, and out of the half-tribe of Manasseh, Tanakh with her suburbs, Gath-Rimmon in her suburbs. I feel like you guys are just throwing names out there, because Gath-Rimmon, they have one here, and Gath-Rimmon here. Okay. Tanakh with her suburbs, and Gath-Rimmon with her suburbs, 2 cities. And all the cities were 10 with their suburbs, and the families of the children of Kohath that remained, and unto the children of Gershon, the families of the Levites, out of the other half-tribe of Manasseh, they gave Golan and the Bashan. Oh, I'm sorry. It's there. Okay. Golan and the Bashan, it's the Golan Heights, belong to the Levites, with her suburbs to be a city and the refuge for the slaver, and Besh-terah with her suburbs, 2 cities, and out of the tribe of Issachar, Kishon with her suburbs, Deber with her suburbs, Jarma with her suburbs, Emgamin with her suburbs, 4 cities, and out of the tribe of Asher, Mishal with her suburbs, Abdon with her suburbs, Helkah with her suburbs, Rehob with her suburbs, 4 cities, and out of the tribe of Naphtali, Kadesh in Galilee, in her suburbs to be a city of refuge for the slayer, and Hamath-odor in her suburbs, and Kartan with her suburbs, 3 cities. All the cities of the Gershonites, according to their families, were 13 cities and their suburbs. So, you want to know where if you accidentally kill somebody, cities are. So you can go be there on house arrest. You want to know what the closest one is to your proximity, especially if you're temperamental. And unto the families of the children of Merari, the rest of the Levites out of the tribe of Zebulun, Jokneam with her suburbs, Karta with her suburbs, Dimnah with her suburbs, Nahalo with her suburbs, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Reuben, Bezer with her suburbs, Jahaza with her suburbs, Kedemoth with her suburbs, Mephath with her suburbs, 4 cities. And out of the tribe of Gad, Ramoth Gilead and her suburbs, to be a city of refuge for the slayer, and Mahanaim with her suburbs. Heshbon with her suburbs, Jazer with her suburbs, 4 cities in all. So the cities of the children of Merari by their families, when the remaining of their families of the Levites were by their lot 12 cities, and the cities of the Levites were their possession of the children of Israel were 48 cities with their suburbs. These cities were every one of their suburbs and about them, and they were all these cities. And the children gave to the Israel all of the land which they swore to give to their fathers, and they possessed it and dwelt therein. And the Lord gave them rest round about according to all they swore to their fathers, and there stood not a man of all their enemies before them. The Lord delivered all their enemies into their land, and they failed not aught of any good thing which came to the Lord spoken in the house of Israel and came to pass. Obviously, he's saying this generally because he talked about the people that they couldn't drive out, okay? But what they don't have is somebody raising an army saying, let's fight, okay? They have peace roundabout, okay? They have people that are strong defensively that they got to take care of later on, but they have peace so far. Then Joshua called the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and he said to them, you have kept all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, and you have obeyed my voice that I commanded you. Remember, for 5 years, they have left their families over here. For 5 years. I'm sure they had some people checking on them so they didn't get raped and pillaged. But for 5 years, they left their families over here and have been fighting in the army. Okay? They have done 5 years in the army. Now they can go home. You have not left your brother in these many days to this day. You have not left your brother in these many days unto this day. You have kept charge of the commandment of the Lord your God. And now the Lord your God has given rest unto your brethren as he promised them. Therefore now return ye and get you unto your tents and unto the land of your possession, which Moses the servant of the Lord gave you on the other side of the Jordan. But take diligent heed to do the commandment and the law which Moses the servant of the Lord charged you, and love the Lord your God, and walk in all his ways, and keep his commandments, and cleave unto him, and serve him with all your heart and with all your soul. So Joshua blessed them and sent them their way and sent them to their tents. Now to one half of the tribe of Manasseh Moses had given possession of Bashan, to the other half of Joshua among their brethren on the side of the Jordan westward. And when Joshua sent them away also their tents, then he blessed them, and he spoke to them, saying, return with much riches unto your tents, and with very much cattle, and with silver, and with gold, and with brass, and with iron, and with much raiment. Divide the spoil of your enemies with your brethren. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh returned and departed from the children of Israel out of Shiloh. And that's Shiloh right here. Boom. We're heading back. Which is the land of Canaan. Go to the country of Gilead, to the land of their possession, whereof they possessed according to the word of the Lord by the hand of Moses. So I wonder if they're just calling this whole area Gilead. It kind of sounds like it. And when they came unto the borders of Jordan that are in that land of Canaan, the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an altar there by Jordan, a great altar to see to. I'm guessing that means to look at. A great altar to look at. Okay, it's a memorial object. Okay. And the children of Israel heard and said, behold, the children of Reuben, the children of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an altar over against the land of Canaan and the borders of the Jordan at the passage of the children of Israel. And when the children of Israel heard of it, the whole congregation of the children of Israel gathered themselves together at Shiloh to go up to war against them. Okay? This is while Joshua was still alive, apparently. And the children of Israel sent to the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest. So Phinehas is the priest. So maybe Joshua is dead by this time. We'll see. And with him 10 princes, the chief house of the prince of all the tribes of Israel, and each one was the head of the house of their fathers among the thousands of Israel. And they came to the children of Reuben, and the children of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, the land of Gilead, and they spoke with them, saying, thus saith the whole congregation of the Lord, what trespass is this that you have committed against the God of Israel, to turn away this day from following the Lord, and you have builded you an altar, that you might rebel this day against the Lord? How dare ye? How dare ye? And this is the iniquity. Is the iniquity of Peor too little for us, from which we are not cleansed until this day, though there was a plague in the congregation of the Lord? But you must turn away this day from following the Lord. And it will be, seeing ye rebel this day against the Lord, that tomorrow he will be wroth with the whole congregation of Israel. You bring in the wrath of God on us. Notwithstanding, if the land of your possession be unclean, then pass ye over to the land of the possession of the Lord, wherein the Lord's tabernacle dwelleth, and take possession among us. But rebel not against the Lord, or rebel against us in building the altar besides the altar of the Lord your God. So what's going on here is something like what happened when northern Israel split up, and they started worshiping them golden calves, and they're like, hey, if you don't want to rebel against the Lord, come over here. In other words, what they're telling to the Reubenites is like, if these guys are doing this in rebellion to God to set up a counterfeit priesthood, come over here. Okay, the good guys come over here. Did not Achan the son of Zerah commit a trespass, and the accursed thing, and wrath fell on all the congregation of Israel, and that man perished not alone in his iniquity? Remember, this was just like 10 years ago, you guys. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh answered and said unto the heads of the thousands of Israel, the Lord God of gods, let's see, the Lord God of gods, Yahovah, El Elohim, Yahovah, El Elohim, he knoweth. Jehovah, God of gods. Jehovah, God of gods. He knoweth, and Israel shall know, if it be in rebellion, or if in transgression against the Lord, save us not this day. In other words, we got this coming, let it be that we die. That we have built on us an altar from following the Lord, or if it is to offer thereon burnt offerings, or meat offerings, or if it is to offer peace offerings thereon, let the Lord himself require it. And if we have not rather done it for fear of this thing, saying, in time your children might speak unto us, the children of Israel, saying, what have ye to do with the Lord God of Israel? In other words, we did this so you guys would know that we're one of you in future times, and you don't start to treat us like we're a different nation later on. You know, because remember, the Moabites used to be our cousins. The Edomites used to be the brothers of Jacob. And we don't want you guys saying Jordan is our border, because it's a nice defensible border, and you guys aren't one of us. Okay? We want to know that we have a portion with the Lord God, and we set this up not to sacrifice on, but as a memorial. Okay? Therefore we said, let us prepare to build us an altar, not for burnt offering, nor for sacrifice, not that we may be a witness, but that it may be a witness between us and you, and our generations after us, that we might do the service of the Lord before him with our burnt offerings, with our sacrifices, with our peace offerings, that your children may not say to the children in time to come, you have no part in the Lord. We don't want you to treat us like one day you're going to treat the Samaritans. We would never do that, says the Jews. We think we know a little bit about this family, and we think maybe time might go on where you treat us like we're not part of the family. So we realize we're living among the Arameans, and we realize the Manassites are half Aramean, and we realize that we're on the other side of the Jordan, and we don't want you guys being like, you're not one of us sometime later when you decide to get all racist. Okay? Therefore, said we, that it shall be that when we should say to our generation in the time to come, that we may say again, behold the pattern of the altar of the Lord, which our fathers made, not for burnt offerings nor for sacrifices, but as a witness between us and you. Why? Notice how we have an altar that looks just like your altar? Yes. We did that so we could say as a testimony, the reason we have an altar that looks just like your altar, yet we do not sacrifice on it, as a memorial that we once served your God. So you can't call us out and say you're not one of us later. God forbid that we should rebel against the Lord and turn this day from following the Lord to build an altar for burnt offerings or meat offerings or for sacrifices beside the altar of the Lord our God that is before his tabernacle, like Jeroboam's going to do later on. And when Phinehas the priest and the princes of the congregation, the heads of the thousands of Israel which were with him, heard the words that the children of Reuben, the children of Gad, and the children of Manasseh spoke, it pleased them. And Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest said to the children of Reuben, the children of Gad, and the children of Manasseh, that this day we perceive that the Lord is among us, because you have not committed this trespass against the Lord. Now you have delivered the children of Israel out of the hand of the Lord. Good. You haven't ticked off God. We're glad. Okay? Why are we writing this down and putting it in the book of the law? So we know for future reference we're not going to turn and get mad later. Okay? And Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest from the princes returned for the children of Reuben and from the children of Gad and out of the land of Gilead unto the land of Canaan into the children of Israel, and brought them word again. And the thing pleased the children of Israel, and the children of Israel blessed God, and did not intend to go up against them to battle and dwell and destroy the land wherein the children of Reuben and Gad dwelt. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad called the altar Ed. They named it Ed. And we called it Bob. They called the altar Ed, for it shall be a witness between us that the Lord is God. This can't be right. They called the altar Ed. They called the altar Witness. Apparently, the Ed is the word for witness. They called the altar Ed, for it shall be a witness between us and that the Lord is God. A witness between us that the Lord is God, that we serve the same God you do, that Yahovah is our God. Okay? And it came to pass, a long time after the Lord had given rest unto Israel and from all the enemies round about, that Joshua waxed old and stricken in age. And Joshua called for Israel and all the elders, and for their heads, and for their judges, and for their officers, and said to them, I am old and stricken in age. God even said so. And you have seen all that the Lord your God has done to the nations because of you. For the Lord your God is he that has fought for you. Behold, I have divided unto lot for these nations that remain for an inheritance for your tribe from Jordan, with all the nations that I have cut off, even to the great sea westward. And the Lord your God, he shall expel them from before you and drive them from your sight, and you shall possess the land, and the Lord your God has promised to you. But be ye therefore very courageous to keep and do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, that ye may turn not aside therefrom from the right hand to the left, that ye may come among these nations that remain among you, neither make mention by name of their gods, and cause them to swear among them, neither serve them, nor bow yourselves unto them, but cleave unto the Lord your God as you have done this day. And the Lord has driven out them from before you great nations and strong, but as for you, no man has been able to stand before you unto this day. One man of you shall chase 1,000, for the Lord is your God, and he fights for you as he has promised you. Take good heed for yourselves that you love the Lord your God. Else if you do in any wise go back and cleave unto the remnant of these nations, even these that remain among you, and you shall make marriages with them, go into unto them, and they to you, know for a certainty that the Lord your God will no more, listen to this, no more drive out any of these nations from before you, but they shall become snares and traps to you, and scourges in your sides, and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from the good of the land which the Lord your God has given you, okay? And that's exactly what's going to happen in the book of Judges. They're going to keep driving them out, and then they're going to start marrying among them, which is exactly what God told them not to do. He told them exactly not to do this. Don't marry in with these people. Why? They're all perverts. They're all child sacrifices. They worship idols. They sometimes make Nephilim. I don't like these people. I want them gone. Don't want you marrying in with them and learning their practices. And once they do, Lord's like, okay, I'm done. You think you can do this better yourself? Go do it better yourself. Okay? And behold, this day I'm going the way of all the earth, and you know in your hearts and all your souls that not one good thing has failed of all the good things which the Lord your God spake concerning you, and are all come to pass, and not one thing has failed thereof. Therefore it shall come to pass that as all good things have come upon you, which the Lord your God promised you, so shall the Lord bring upon you all the evil things until you have destroyed you from off this good land which your Lord his God has given you. Now, this seems to be like the Ebal. I don't know if they actually ever did the thing where they went up on, because Moses tells them to go up to Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim and do this blessings and curse thing. Oh, no, they did do that, because it says Joshua built an altar to the Lord on Mount Gebal. And they did. They read the blessings and cursings. Okay, so they did the thing that Moses told them to do. But this is beyond that, okay? We're going to have another foretype of a new covenant. I want you to see this. Remember, Joshua means Jesus, okay? You have seen that the Lord your God has done for you all these nations that bore you, because the Lord has fought for you. Don't marry these people, or it's over. The good times are over, okay? And then he says, and the Lord your God, he shall expel them from before you and drive them out. Okay, be very courageous to keep and do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, that you turn not aside from therein, from the right hand or to the left, that you come not from among these nations, that you remain that remain among you, neither make mention of the name of their gods, nor cause to swear by them, neither serve them, nor bow yourselves unto them. Now I want you to listen to what he's saying. When you come to these nations, I don't want you to make them swear by their gods to keep a promise to you or whatever, okay? We don't want their names mentioned. These gods, these false gods, these lies, these corrupt gods that are probably corruptions of, the god of the storm and the bull of heaven and Nimrod, and Dagon seems to be a new one. I'm going to do some research on him. We don't want you to mention their names. Don't let them treat them like their gods. No, don't have them swear by their God. Don't do that. but cleave unto the Lord your God as you have done to this day. For the Lord has driven out from among you great nations and strong, but as for you, no man has been able to stand before you unto this day. One man of you shall chase 1,000, for the Lord is your God, and he that fights for you is promised for you. Take good heed, therefore, unto yourselves to love the Lord your God. Else if you go back and cleave unto the remnant of these nations, and that remain among you, you shall make marriages with them, and go unto them, and they unto you. Know for a certainty that the Lord your God will no more drive out these nations from before you, but they shall be snares and traps to you, and scourge in your sides, and thorns in your eyes, and you shall perish from off this good land which the Lord your God has given you. Now the parallel to this is in the New Testament, when God's like, through Paul, telling him, don't mix philosophy and Jewish legends and crap in with the Bible. Okay? You people who are into the book of Jubilees and the book of Enosh and the book of Jasher and the book of bullcrap, okay? When Paul is talking about Jewish fables in the New Testament, he knows these things exist. There's a reason why they're not in the Bible. And because of that, you literally had people in the early church consider Jude whether or not it should be in the canon just because he quotes from the book of Enoch, okay? This actually took place in the early church. They knew Paul was talking about the book of Enoch. And apparently they ultimately decided, well, Paul quoted from Greek poets. And we know, like, he literally is quoting stuff about Zeus. And what is he saying? He's using it as an analogy. He's saying it's like that, okay? So if Jude's using Enoch in that way, or maybe there's some truth to something, but the book of Enoch is not legit. They knew the book of Enoch was not legit very early on, okay? So don't get into this stuff. Those are Jewish fables and fake genealogies. When he's talking about don't pay attention to these fake genealogies, he's talking about the book of Jubilees. They know there's this book of crapped up genealogies out there, okay? Don't get into this stuff. And behold, this day I'm going the way of all the earth. So what happens is when the church starts mixing this stuff, it stops being evangelical and it starts being the state religion of Rome and gets really worse after that. And behold, this day I'm going the way of all the earth, and you know in your hearts and your souls that not one thing has failed of all the good things the Lord spoke concerning you. All are come to pass unto you, and not one thing has failed thereof. Therefore it shall come to pass that all the good things that are come upon you, which the Lord your God has promised you, so shall the Lord bring all the evil things until he has destroyed you off this good land which the Lord your God has given you. Don't pull no crap. We have transgressed the covenant of the Lord your God, which he commanded you, and have gone and served other gods, and bows yourselves to them. Then shall the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and you shall perish quickly from the land which he has given you, okay? Now, they've already done the swearing, the blessings, and cursings thing, and then Joshua went in with them and helped them kick butt all over the land. Remember, he's the type of Jesus. Why is he doing this again? It's a foretype of the new covenant again. And Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel to Shechem, and called for the elders of Israel, and for their heads and their judges and their officers, and they presented themselves before God. Remember, Shechem is the city where they killed everybody, okay? It's also where Joseph is buried. And Joshua said to all the people, thus saith the Lord God your Israel, your fathers dwelt on the other side of the flood in old time, even Terah, the father of Abraham, the father of Nahor, and they served other gods. Okay? I want you to hear this, because all of your Jewish myths, you know how you can tell they're Jewish myths? They talk about how Abraham was so great and so wise, and he burned down the temple of the gods that were worshipped in Ur, and the gods that his father worshipped, and all this stuff, and he was so righteous and so good, and that he just contemplated until he understood God perfectly, like a philosopher, and they're full of crap. Listen what he says here. Terah, the father of Abraham, the father of Nahor, okay? He's saying, your fathers, Terah, the father of Abraham, the father of Nahor, okay? This is Nahor, from where all their wives come. This is Abraham, from where all they come. And this is Terah, their father. They served other gods, okay? God reveals himself to Abraham. He reveals himself to those who do not seek him. They were falling into the same ignorance as everyone else. Remember, this Canaan cult, which was based in astrology, was probably running for a good 100 to 200 years by the time Abraham left, okay? It was the common religion. It was basically astrology, okay? They were equating the stars with various gods and the planets. This is a very old system. These planets have a different orbit, and it must be like they call them wandering stars. and those are gods. And that's why you're going to keep finding these 7 gods, okay? You're going to find this in Zoroastrianism, because you couldn't see Pluto, and you had Mercury, Venus, Earth, obviously you didn't think of as one of them. You had Mercury, Venus, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus, okay? So you have 7 of them, and then you have the sun and the moon, okay? This is where your quote-unquote 7 archangels and 7 heavens and all that stuff comes from, that gets sucked into the book of Enoch, okay? It comes from the 7 planets that you can see. The Bible talks about 3 heavens. That's it. It calls it the heaven of heavens in the Old Testament, and it calls it the 3rd heaven. Paul calls it that, okay? You don't have 7 heavens, and you don't have 7 archangels in the Bible. All that is a Jewish myth that is taking the 7 gods of the pagans that they had based on these planets and turning it into 7 archangels. That's it, okay? Don't follow this crap. Remember, these people served other gods. It was an astrological system. You're going to find this in Josephus and in Philo. You're going to find positive affirmations of things having to do with astrology, okay? This was very much going on in Judaism after they mixed with the Babylonians and the Persians, okay? And the Greeks too. Pythagoras was doing this too, okay? And I took your father Abraham from the other side of the flood and led him throughout all the land of Canaan and multiplied his seed and gave him Isaac. I took your father from the other side of the flood, in other words, the other side of the Euphrates River, and led him throughout all the land of Canaan and multiplied his seed and gave him Isaac. I gave unto Isaac Jacob and Esau. I gave unto Esau Mount Seir to possess it, but Jacob and his children went down to Egypt. I sent Moses also and Aaron. I plagued Egypt according to all that I did among them, and afterwards I brought you out. Notice this is the Lord saying this, okay? He's saying through Joshua as a prophet, he's saying the Lord said all this. I brought your fathers out of Egypt. You came into the sea, and the Egyptians pursued after your fathers with chariots and horsemen under the Red Sea. If you just go read through the Psalms, how many times they repeat this narrative, okay? God did this. He brought Abraham out. They went into Egypt. Then they brought out blah, blah, blah. And you know what? You're never going to find in any of these tons and tons and tons of songs anything from the book of Enoch. Anything from the book of Jubilees. All the distinct information from the book of Enoch and the book of Jubilees you don't find represented in the Psalms. Why? Because it's made up later on. That's why. This is really bad when people try to treat that stuff like they're canon. And this is just, you can just tell. You don't need to know all this history to know this stuff's not in canon. You just need to know your scriptures. How many songs and how many times do they repeat the narrative of Abraham being drawn out of Ur and them being drawn into here and them going down to Egypt and the Lord bringing them out and all this stuff and all this extra biblical stuff about an angel named Mastema coming to Moses and giving him the secret stuff and the secret blah 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 mystery knowledge and the 7 angels and the 7 heavens and all this crap about Enoch. Why is this not in any of these songs, any of these proverbs, in Job? Why is it not here? Because it's made up. And it's made up in the Second Temple period. That's why. Okay? And when they cried to the Lord, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians and brought the sea upon them and covered them. And your eyes have seen what I have done in Egypt. And you dwelt in the wilderness a long season. And I have brought you into the land of the Amorites, which dwelt on the other side of the Jordan. And they fought with you. And I gave them into your land that you might possess the land. And I destroyed them before you. You even have the Lord talking about coming up from Edom, which is where Job was and which is where the whole story of the Lord is. So you know there's the legitimacy to Job. But you don't have any of this other stuff. Think about that. Know your word, and you'll just read the Apocrypha and this Essene literature and all this crap, and you're just like, yeah, this seems foreign to what I know. It tastes funny. Okay, because I've tasted the word of the Lord and I see that it's good, and this stuff tastes funny, like there's artificial ingredients in it. And he brought you to the land of the Amorites and dwelt on the other side of Jordan, and they fought with you, and I gave them in your hand that they might possess their land, and I destroyed them before you. And Balak the son of Zippor, the king of Moab, arose and warred against Israel, and sent and called Balaam the son of Beor to curse you. And I would not hearken to Balaam, for he blessed you still, and so delivered you out of his hand. Notice, these guys have lived through all of this, okay? Maybe their children are around now, okay? Notice how redundant it is. Notice how he keeps going back and saying, this stuff that just happened in Numbers and Deuteronomy, which pretty much took place a decade ago, let me review it again, okay? So you know they have a closed canon, okay? So you know there's not some, oh, did you know there was the secret book of Moses that he wrote to blah, 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 blah? Nope. None of those details seem to be here. Why does God keep repeating himself and not say any of the stuff that you're saying? Well, you had to have the secrets of the mystery knowledge and be in the club of the blah, blah, blah gay guys to know. Yeah, okay. And you went over the Jordan, you came to Jericho, and the men of Jericho fought against you, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, and I delivered them in your hand. And I sent the hornet before you. This is why I think the Antichrist is going to have these locusts. I sent the hornet before you, and I drave them out before you. I drave them out. Even the 2 kings of the Amorites, but not with thy sword, nor with thy bow. He said, I fought supernaturally for you. I have given you a land which you did not labor, and cities which you built not, ye dwell in them, and the vineyards and the olive yards which you planted, not do ye eat. Now therefore fear the Lord, and serve him in sanctity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the flood. Remember, that's where he brought Abraham from, and in Egypt, and serve ye the Lord. You're going to find other prophets later that tell how the Israelites in Egypt served other gods, okay? I believe that the Israelites with the Egyptians came up with the Apis bull. I believe it's a corruption of the Father, Spirit, and Son, and that's why you have a serpent in place of the Spirit. This is always what it is. You find the Father, Spirit, Son replaced in these different pantheons, okay? It's a corrupt version of it. They're not just trying to say this is God and that's not God. They're trying to say this is that God. And that's why they say, I mean, this is what the pagans are always trying to do. All religions are basically the same. Yeah, we believe what you believe. Scientologists will say that to you, okay? All false pagan cults are going to try to convince you not that your religion is wrong and theirs is right. Only people who are in the truth do that, or at least that believe they're in the truth, okay? It's the people who say, yeah, we basically believe the same thing you believe. Those are the ones that you need to be aware of, okay? And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served when they were on the sides of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, okay? So he's talked about the gods of Egypt and the gods of Babylon, okay? Or the gods of the Amorites. These are the gods that are developed, basically Baal and Molech and all these guys. All came from the Amorites, because that's where Ashtoreth was, okay? And the people answered and said, God forbid that we shall forsake the Lord to serve other gods. For the Lord is our God. He it is who brought us up and our fathers out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage, which did these great signs in our sight, and preserved us in the way wherein we went, and among all the people through whom we passed. And the Lord drave out before us all these people, even the Amorites which dwelt in the land. Therefore we shall serve the Lord. Listen to this. We also serve the Lord, for he is our God. We will serve Yahovah or Jehovah or Yahweh, for he is our God, okay? He's our God. Now listen to this. This is what Joshua says to him. Joshua said to the people, you cannot serve the Lord. You want to see a new covenant foretype in a really big way? You cannot serve the Lord, for he is a holy God and he is a jealous God. He will not forgive your transgressions or your sins. What? He's telling them, you'll never offer service to God. If you forsake the Lord and serve strange gods, then he will turn and do your hurt and consume you. After that, he has done you good. Okay? He won't forgive your sins. What? And the people said to Joshua, nay, but we will serve the Lord. And Joshua said to the people, you are witnesses against yourself that you have chosen you the Lord to serve him. And they say, we are witnesses. Now therefore put away, said he, the strange gods that are among you, and incline your heart unto the Lord God of Israel. And the people said to Joshua, the Lord our God we will serve, and his voice we will obey. And Joshua made a covenant. Listen to this. And Jesus made a covenant with the people that day, and set them a statute and an ordinance in Shechem. Do you see a foretype of the new covenant there? Definitely. Okay. God did all the work for you. You can't serve him. Let's make a covenant. And Joshua wrote these words. Listen, he wrote these words in the book of the law of God, and took a great stone and set it up there under the oak that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. So I want you guys to hear this. This is important. The book of the law of God. Now they have the 5 books of the law of Moses, but this is the book of the law of God. And so now you can see the evidence that they were starting to form a canon. And the law of Moses, the first 5 books of the law, were the foundation of that canon, just like the Gospels are the foundations of the New Testament, right? But what Joshua did is added to the book of the law of God. And notice he says the law of God, okay? Now, this is the first, I want you guys to hear this. This is the first reference to the term law of God in the Bible. You're not going to hear it again until Nehemiah. So your Hebrew roots people love to use the term law of God. Now listen, Paul says, "For I delight in the law of God after the inward man. I myself serve the law of God, but with the flesh the law of sin. For it is not the carnal mind is not subject to the law of God, neither can it be." What is the law of God? The law of God is not the law of Moses, okay? Because Paul is talking as a New Testament Christian keeping the law of God. Notice the first usage of that is in Joshua, not in the books of Moses. In the books of Moses, you won't find the term law of God, nor will you find the term Holy Covenant. The Holy Covenant is going to be in Daniel. And then he is Zechariah, John the Baptist's dad, is going to use that term, and he's going to say that's the covenant that he made with Abraham, not the Mosaic covenant, okay? The Holy Covenant and the law of God, this is the law of the Spirit written in your heart, okay? Now listen to this. The law of Moses is there. See how he says, as it is written in the book of the law of Moses, Joshua 8. 3 times. He says, therefore you be courageous and keep and do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, that you turn not aside from left or right, okay? So those people who want to tell you that the law of God and the law of Moses are the same thing, they're not. They were never not, okay? The law of God is encompassing the whole Bible. The law of Moses is encompassing the first 5 books, and specifically the covenant that was given between Exodus and Deuteronomy. Okay? They don't just use these words haphazardly, okay? Now look at this. He's going to reference something in the law of Moses and turn that into a typology having to do with paying your pastors, okay? This is the New Testament. Notice he's going to say he's using the law of Moses to reference the coming of Christ. But see how you don't see the law of Moses, 15:15, that is needful to circumcise and to keep the law of Moses, and they're going to answer no. The law of Moses and the law of God are different, okay? Yes, Paul says we keep the law of God, okay? He says walking in the Spirit is keeping the law of God, but the carnal mind is set at enmity of God. It is not subject to the law of God, neither can it be, okay? And what he's saying, remember, what Paul is talking about here, when he's saying the law, he's talking about the law of Moses, and then he's saying the law of God. He is talking about something that is both an Old Testament and a New Testament reality here, okay? The reality is that he says, I find a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. Why? Because your flesh always wants to sin, okay? This is where there's a side of this that the Calvinists are part right, okay? This is talking about the struggle with the New Testament believer, okay? Because he says almost the exact same thing in Galatians, okay? You're going to have a fight because part of you serves the law of sin and death, and part of you serves the law of God, which is the Holy Spirit and the law written on your heart, okay? So I delight with God after the inward man. But I see another law in my members, warring against the law of mine, bringing me in captive to the law of sin, which is in my members. O wretched man, who shall free me from the body of death? Okay? So he says, I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord, so then with the mind I serve the law of God. Well, wait a minute. If you thank God through Jesus Christ your Lord, then you're serving the law of God after you're born again. Right? But with the flesh, the law of sin, okay? There's no condemnation for those who are in Christ who walk after the flesh according to the Spirit, okay? Serving God according to the law of God in your inward man is walking after the Spirit, okay? This is not talking about the law of Moses. He is talking about being set on heavenly things instead of on earthly things, and that's not talking about the law of Moses. And the law of Moses doesn't talk to you about heaven, okay? The law of Moses talks about ordinances here on the earth. So you want to get these, when you see these terminologies like law of God and law of Moses, go through the whole Bible and see when one is used and when the other is used, okay? Now, what Paul is saying would apply to like David with the law of Moses, okay? David delights in the law of the inward man, but the outer man wants to sleep with Bathsheba, okay? That doesn't mean he's born again. It means you can be not born again and acknowledge that the law is good, okay? And that's what he's saying. And so Romans 7 is a weird passage because you need to understand it has application to someone before they're born again and after, okay? And we've had a fight forever about is it one or the other, and it's a both and, okay? Just like the fights about Matthew 24 being about 70 AD or the last days. It's a both and, okay? And if you don't understand this, you're going to say, oh, see, there you go. Paul delights in the law of God, which means, no, he's not obligated to keep the law of Moses to become righteous, but he delights to do so. See, they're going to conflate the law of God and the law of Moses. And you need to show them and go, no, right here, you have Joshua in Joshua 24 making a distinction between the law of God and the law of Moses. Because in Joshua 23, he talks about what is written in the book of the law of Moses, and that's the 5 books. And in Joshua 24, he talks about this being added to the law of God. And that's the greater Bible. That's the expanding and ongoing canon of Scripture that continues on after Moses. Okay? And that's why you're going to have people in the Second Temple period who only follow the 5 books of Moses, and others who follow the greater expanded canon. They know they're different. And the question is, what are we subject to? And the ones who are following the greater canon, the law and the prophets and the writings, they're looking for Messiah, and the ones who are just following the law of Moses aren't so much. Okay? So, Joshua wrote these words in the book of the law of God and took a great stone and set it up under an oak that was by the sanctuary of the Lord. So the tabernacle's right there. And Joshua said to all the people, behold, the stone will be a witness unto us, for he hath heard all the words of the Lord which he spoke to us, shall therefore be a witness unto you, lest you deny God. Notice he sets up a big rock and says this rock is going to be a witness that you heard God speak. You heard the word of the Lord. So Joshua let the people depart, every man to his inheritance. And it came to pass after these things that Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. So he lives 15 years after he finishes conquering the land. He goes in at age 90, he spends 5 years fighting, spends 15 years later, he gives them this. He probably is writing down all the details of the battle and the divisions of the land because he knows it's going to be important. And that's tucked away with the tabernacle. And they buried him in the border of his inheritance at Timnath-Serah, which is in the Mount Ephraim on the north side of the hill of Gash. And Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, which had known of all the works of the Lord, which he had done for Israel. And the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up out of Egypt, buried they in Shechem in the parcel of ground which Jacob bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver, and it became an inheritance of the children of Joseph. Now they also slaughtered everyone in Shechem later on. We don't want to talk about that though. And Eleazar the son of Aaron died, and they buried him in the hill that pertained to Phinehas his son, which was given to him in Mount Ephraim. So Eleazar probably, maybe Phinehas is leading now, because Eleazar is really old, and Eleazar and Joseph apparently both seem to die. Okay? Now, this is going to be important because when we read about the story of the Danites sacking Lashem and taking over everything, we find that Moses' grandson is a young man at the time, okay, which is probably a son of one of Moses' sons in their old age. Because remember, Moses has his sons sometime between when they're 40 and 80, which means they would have been between 40 and 80 in the Promised Land, okay, and so they could have been 60 to 80 years old by the time they would enter into the Promised Land, okay? But they were probably among those people that died in the wilderness because Well, I take that back. Moses' sons might not have been counted among them because they might have not been going to war. They were living among the Midianites until Moses got back. But they may have had sons later on in the wilderness experience, and one of those sons is a young man when he comes to serve the Danites, okay? Phineas, when they almost destroy Benjamin, is still the high priest. So that's going to happen probably within, I would guess, within 40, 50 years of them being in the Promised Land. So both of those stories, even though they're at the end of the book of Judges, are going to take place right after this. And that's what we're going to go into next. And we're also going to go into the books of the Judges after that, okay? Because those stories all seem to be right away. So I'm going to do a little research and then decide which ones I'm going to do. But we're going to go through Judges like a history book rather than just a straightforward chronology, so you can understand, because what's going to happen in Judges is you're going to have stories that take place concurrent with each other. So you're going to have these guys fighting down here and these guys fighting up here, these guys being oppressed over here, these guys getting involved in stuff down here. And it does take place over a total, I think it's like 375 years-ish. But some of the stories overlap. And if you read it like a straightforward chronology, you're going to get confused, okay? So anyways, I hope you guys are blessed by this. I want you all to read all the names out loud, okay? Just do it. Just do it at the dinner table with your family and just read all the names of these cities out loud. And like how you pronounce them is their official pronunciation for your household from henceforth, now, and forever, okay? It will be a good exercise in just winging it, ad lib, okay? Hope you guys are blessed by this. Have a great rest of your week. Batman out. Peace.
Peace, I'm out. I'm Batman.